We are live.
Welcome to BallBusters. We've got a full panel today and a special guest to listen to. I'll just go in alphabetical order, so nobody feels put out or anything. Adam Meekin, Arwen, Betty, Sleeping Warrior, Chocolate Saiyan, Dr. John D, Nathan Oakley, Ranty, Taboo Conspiracy, and myself, of course, and not last but not least, Quantum Eraser. What's up, everybody?
What's going on out there? Hello.
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 Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello.
We got a great show for you guys today. It's going to be outstanding. Before we get there, if you'd like to support this channel, there's PayPal and Patreon links in the info box below. All of the work cited and credits for what will be presented today is in the info box beneath this video. And before I forget, because I forgot the last time, there will be no live show this Tuesday on the Quantum Eraser channel because it's New Year's Eve. So the normal schedule will resume next week. And that's it for the admin. Ben, Taboo Conspiracy. Big fan. How are you, sir?
I'm wonderful. It's wonderful to be here with everybody. I've known some of you for a long time, so it's quite an honor. Thank you.
You're very welcome, sir. Like I said, big fan of your work. Been subscribed for a very long time. I love your conciseness, right to the point, common sense approach, and you can't get out of it. That's what I love about it, sir. So welcome. The honor is on this side, sir. Thank you very much and kudos for what you do.
Thank you.
So everyone in the audience is hopefully familiar with some of the stuff that Taboo Conspiracy has done, but I'll give you my, not introduction to what I first came across you with, but my favourite video, which is the guys on the submarine looking out at the horizon, and they're adjudicating whether or not they can shoot at the target. do you want to fill in the rest?
I'm glad you brought that one up. That was just actually pretty funny because if you think about it, all the professionals in the world, especially like anyone in the military, that they would know full well about the supposed, refraction idea that things are hopping over the curvature. You'd be able to explain it better than I can. But the idea that if that was occurring, then all the people in the military would know about it because they'd have to figure out whether they can actually shoot down that hit that boat or shoot that airplane or whatever it is that's supposed to be hidden behind the curvature, and that never happens. And I just hoped with that video that it could portray some of the silliness of that discussion.
I mean, that's gone on to your latest endeavor, if you might call it that, which is BallBusters Pro. And you've got various other similar things in terms of, is it sonar? Is that the correct terminology?
Yeah, sonar. Getting a lot of context. It's just a lot of work to compile everything together and to do the interviews. I have to schedule it with Bob and the professional, and so it's been a lot of work. And unfortunately, it's taken a lot of my time. So I'm not putting out as many videos as I normally like to.
Sure, but with respect to how much effort it is, and I appreciate it must be vast, the end result is akin to Mark Sargent's Strange World 22. Do you remember that episode? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, his subject matter expert series?
Yeah, exactly. So there was a few sort of pinnacle moments for Mark where he had just the best of subject matter expert on, and that particular show has been referenced to death by so many people, including Quantum Eraser. I'm sure you'll bring it up with the Type 2, I can't remember the name, it's the Sea Sparrow. But this was just as good, in my opinion. It was just as the sort of pinnacle of proofs from a creditable source in terms of what you were presenting on that particular BallBusters Pro. Just heart-stopping in terms of like, wow, it really is. There's no arguing with it.
Yeah, that Mark Sargent series was very instrumental in my I guess, I don't know, enlightenment to the flat Earth reality. It's just And that's what I'm trying to add to, is to give people a clear avenue to share those things. The only criticism I would have with respect to Mark Sargent's videos is it has a lot of extra talking, a lot of extra. I mean, you have to watch some of those videos that are several hours long to catch a 10-minute interview, and I wanted to make those things much more concise that people can reference very easily and show to everybody.
And I hope they do. I mean, if people haven't caught on in that respect to what you're doing, they should. It's something that's easily shareable, easily digestible, easily understandable, and undebunkable. So you can't really ask much more. So worth the effort, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, after that sonar technician said that there's absolutely no curvature that's accounted for anything, that there is no acoustic shadow, that there should be, and there isn't. After we did that, I had 3 more sonar technicians email me and say, yes, that's absolutely the fact, that there is no curvature with respect to sonar. And one of them was worked in the sonar for submarines, and he says their submarine sonar equipment's much better than the ship ones. But if when you understand how the math works, getting lower where the submarines are, they could see 1,000 miles with their sonar equipment. My goodness, and there's no curvature. I mean, how much more evidence do you need?
I would think that their sonar would have to be a lot better, because they have no eyes down there. And I'm sure there are some topographical features that want to avoid. I'm just spitballing.
Yeah, and you think that would be day one. Hey, you'd want to hide your submarine, hide behind the curvature.
Oh, come on, guys. Terrestrial refraction fixes everything.
You beat me to it. I was going to say in your comment sections, has anybody said, no, it's bending. The sonar's bending at 7/6 of the presupposed radius.
I love it, Nathan.
Yeah, I would say
Arwin,
go ahead.
Arwin beat me to it. And I was just going to say Arwin got the credit there. He beat me to it.
Too quick.
To be fair, Nathan, they'd have to come up with. It's a bit like the 4/3 for for Wi-Fi transmission. They'd have to come up with a new fraction to account for all of the subtle differences, like with microwave. So maybe a sort of a 4/3, maybe a 12 over I don't know, 7 or something, because obviously water would be slightly different and the lights in it, but just close enough to give them enough lift.
Yeah, but the densities of the seawater, right? You'd have to do not only water, but seawater, and then the different densities, correct?
Yeah, you'd have to. Yeah, you'd have a different fraction for the Dead Sea, for certainly.
At certain.
Don't give away. Hold on. Don't give away too much detail. You might find they reverse engineer what you're now talking about.
Yeah, that's right.
Bullshit. We get fed in about a month's time.
Oh, come on. They can mechanize and flip around the statistics for density correlation with optics any way they like, until they get it fixed, until they get it perfectly aligned with R.
But this isn't optics. That's the beauty of it.
Exactly. It's not optics that we're talking about here now.
Yeah, you think about it, the absurdity of this bending over the curvature refraction. It applies. They'll say it applies with respect to the sonar. They say it applies with respect to the radar. They say it applies with respect to Marconi's radio transmission that 2,000 miles. They'll say it applies with respect to very high frequency radio transmissions for the Nicobine. They'll say it for everything, and especially our long distance footage where you can see a horizon that should be only maybe 2 miles away, that's further than 11 miles. And it gets so absurd, this idea that nature is trying to trick us into just believing in a flat earth. I mean, come on.
Exactly. Before we get started, I'd just like to say personally, my favorites by far that stopped me in my tracks when I was watching your videos, and this was a while ago, was the horizon distance, right? Because when I first got out here, all they were saying, I could remember people saying, is stuck in my mind, that at 6 feet elevation, this was what the ballers be saying, 6 feet elevation, then you could see 3 miles. And it wasn't not only them saying it, I've read that in many publications, and that was just a standard. They moved on to other topics, other subjects, but that stuck with me. And immediately when I seen your videos, I knew what you were going to do. And I said, you beautiful bastard, you. How easy is this? An incoherent second grader can understand this the way you show it. And like I said, it's simple elegance. That's why I love it. There's nothing you can do about it. Right?
You know, I still haven't seen someone come up with a counter video to those horizon issues.
Yeah, and we're going to go over them today in your video. And like I told you, my favorite was the Cutter Rock. Right? And that was some time ago when you posted that video. I don't know how long ago it was. I just know it was a while ago. And what was funny about it, you had a Skynyrd song on it. So I loved it immediately, right? So I stole your work, right? And I put up a little a blurb to combat, on different forums. Somebody would bring up Horizons, and I'd just bring up that blurb, and I said, listen, while you're getting pummeled here, if it's too painful, just listen to Simple Man by Skynyrd. It'll help you. But the problem was, what happened was after a while, there was one point in time where I posted the link, and the person responded back to me and said, hey, that link doesn't work. And I said, you gotta be kidding me. And then I went and hit the link, and your channel had just went down. And
yeah, that was a pretty big one.
Yeah, and then depression set in because I couldn't use it anymore, right? So you need to get the original back up with the Skynyrd song. I think it's Simple Man or Tuesday's Gone, one of those two.
I lost a lot when
you
they
did
that. I didn't have things backed up. I thought they'd at least give me a warning or something, but they took me out without warning on that one.
Yeah, that's too bad. But we're going to go over. You still have some Cutter Rock in here. It's not the same, but it's still. It's very poignant, and you can't get around it, right?
Yeah, and I just did a recent video with another one from Wide Awake that further supports exactly what I showed in the Dallas presentation. He had his camera down at 2.5 feet, filmed Cutter Rock 11.22 miles away. The horizon should have been under 1.9 miles, and instead it's further than 11.22 miles. Absolutely, positively impossible on the gold model. I don't care what stupid reasons they can try to come up with. There's no way that the horizon can bend when, the entire rack should be hidden below a target hidden height of 59 feet. And somehow the horizon disappear, the water in front of the bulge in front of this rack disappears and then reappears miles beyond Cutter Rock. It's absurd. Absolutely absurd. But I guess if they want to hold on to their silly religion, that's their business.
Yeah, and we're going to be going over that today. Just to let everyone know, that is what we're doing today. We're taking Ben's presentation that he made in Dallas at the Flat Earth Conference, and we're going to run that video. And then we're going to ask for comments from the group and Ben. That's what we're up to today. So.
And hopefully some of the watchers, anyone who's watching and you have a great comment or a good question, not the scum propagandist questions, but a good question, please ask it.
So does anyone else have anything they want to discuss with Ben before we get started? That usually stops everyone in their tracks, man. They won't say anything now.
I'd just like to thank Ben for all the hard work he's done. He's done some excellent work, and I'm a big admirer.
Is that Ranty?
It is, yeah.
Hey, Ranty, it's good to hear from you. I admire your stuff, too. You're out there in the cold, and everything's just filming and providing proofs all the time that there's absolutely no curvature where you are.
There's certainly no curvature where I live, that's for sure.
And shout out to Anthony, who he was one of the first ones that used to promote your channel. So, Anthony, are you out there? Let's hear that sound, man.
Yeah, I'm here. I don't know if I'm coming through okay or not. I don't know if I had noise before. I'm hoping it's fixed now, but yeah, I'm here. I'm paying attention and I'm listening carefully.
You sound good. That sounds good. You're any problems? Anyone else with Anthony?
No.
Outstanding.
That sounds good.
All right. Anything else?
Hey.
All right.
I think
Anything
we're all
else?
good. Should we rock and roll? Should we start the presentation?
Yeah, sure. All right, Ben, listen, like I said, this is going to be a quick turnaround for the first one. So just to be on your guard. Everyone ready? Here we go.
Hello, everyone. Many of you have already seen my Romania presentation about the Flat Earth journey. I will cover much of that presentation here today, but with some new videos and topics as well for your consideration. As pointed out by Owen Benjamin, I'm a bit dry and technical, and I will repeat myself often, but I hope that you can nevertheless enjoy this discussion. I can't promise that it'll be entertaining, but I can at least say that it will be sincere. I only have 45 minutes, and so I will speak fast. Flat Earth is the catalyst to break the chains that mentally, spiritually, physically, and scientifically bind humanity. We Flat Earthers aren't anti-science. We Flat Earthers are unashamed truth addicts trying to free science from lies, faith-based, globe religious zealotry, and the heliocentric nonsense that has bound it for generations. Scholastically speaking, I'm a fairly educated person. I graduated from college magna cum laude, and I took astronomy in college. I have a master's and a Juris Doctorate. Up until just a few years ago, I genuinely believed in the globe and considered space and astronomy essential for the well-educated man.
All right, sir. Yeah, astronomy. Love that. Any comments and questions? I know it was a quick turnaround, but any comments and questions up until now? And Ben, if you want to add on to anything, be my guest.
I guess I don't really have much to add. I mean, I don't want to sit there and brag about my degrees or anything. I'm not that type of person, but I do have a lot of education. I took astronomy. I got my A in astronomy. I passed college. I did all of that. I went through the system. And so when I started researching the flat Earth, it just came up and I started trying to debunk it like probably almost everyone has tried. You start to realize is how stupid the official model is. And you start thinking, well, I thought that maybe there's some sort of gravity detector that would, that we could, show hold up this machine and be able to determine where the Earth and where the sun and the moon are based only on gravity. There's nothing like that. It's just start going through, facet after facet, and you start realizing that the globe argument's absolutely stupid.
Yeah, and the astronomy, right? We currently have a housekeeping question. It's still an outstanding question. No one's answered it. We're waiting for a single viable scientific hypothesis in the entire history of either astronomy, astrophysics, or cosmology. Been out there for about a month now. Guess what we've gotten back? Crickets. So that's what we got for astronomy so far. Okay, any other comments from the group?
Just got one quick one, just to follow on from Ben there, really, and it's probably fellow geekiness with regards to the point of, you do look at it, and I think Ben's probably similar to me in that when he alluded to there, looking at gravitational things, there would be differences, and looking at the mathematics of it, when you do bother, it becomes, for those that are a bit geeky, it really does undermine everything that they try to portray as reality, because those things that they do tell you that are there, you can calculate. I did it with, ball earth, carousel and the lights, and you can sit there and do the maths, and some of us do. And I'm thinking Ben's similar. And when you do, it really does underline the point for yourself when you test it yourself in there.
Absolutely.
I think Betty might have a couple of super chats to shout out. If you want to do that, Betty.
Was that an admission of geekiness, Ben, or an admission, or as well? Do you know what I mean? You sit there and do those things, and they're laughable, aren't they? I mean, Chris UK has just brought out a video past couple of days with regards to that gravitational pull from one side, from midnight and midday, and you look at them. There is mathematics there to show that there's numbers there that were, it's that quantitative qualitative argument again. It's still there, but it's never demonstrable.
Yeah, I did a video on the what do you call it, the Cavendish's balls about you apply the same math that they use that they said that proves gravity with respect to Cavendish's balls, and you apply that same math with respect to, say, a solar eclipse, and it should be something like 10 million times more powerful. during a solar eclipse of us being pulled upwards versus Cavendish's balls. But yet he was able to measure that back in the 1800s or whatever it was. It's all you start actually criticizing, critiquing, start thinking for yourself instead of just being a parrot for the mainstream education centers and things. You realize the emperor has no clothes. It's all bogus.
Yeah. Balls in a shed's funny because you can try and control that experiment, but with Anthony, the way he said, the 1 in 50 million paradigm, 50 millionth paradigm is realistically a gnat farting in the corner would cause an air ripple that would have a greater force than what they're trying to measure. It's just a farcical. I'm not going to use the E word.
So, super chats.
Yay! I got 2 of them. Yeah, I got 2 super chats that already came in, and this one is from Rhino, aka Braadworst Bear, which is a funny name. What a crew! I love this Taboo vid. And another one from Neo the One, and he says, "May BallBusters prosper in 2020." So, yay!
Hey man, who you gonna call? BallBusters, man.
He-Man.
Oh, and just one more came in, and it's from Rakia Live, and he says, "Merry Christmas to all," although that's a little bit redundant. "Jesus gives of the free gift of salvation. Don't pass mood, Rakia Live." Rakia Live.
Amen, Dave. Thank you very much, sir. Thanks for the super chat, guys. All right, we ready to roll? Let's roll that beautiful bean footage.
Despite my vehement distrust of the U.S. government, I somehow still considered NASA exempt from the corruption. That all changed when I read David McGowan's Wagging the Moon Doggy, which thoroughly debunked the Apollo moon missions. I loved space too. I really wanted to believe in NASA, but the evidence that NASA lied is indisputable. NASA is a criminal organization that steals $59 million per day under false pretense. Seriously, how can any intelligent person think that this is genuine footage of a spaceship in lunar orbit? NASA is a scam. In addition, any reverence I had for academia ended with Wagging the Moon Doggy, as no major institution has ever pointed out the blatant lie. The lunar lander is a piece of junk made from curtain rods, aluminum foil, tar paper, scotch tape, some useless, space-looking abstract art sculptures, and some very poor construction. Does that really look like a spaceship to you? Look at the astronauts suspended by wires. The wires are visible throughout the Apollo missions. Look at the telltale signs of 1960s movie backdrops used throughout all of the Apollo missions. Research how the inverse square law of light and how that proves the moon landings were fake.
All right, any comments on the Tweaker shelter?
No, I show my parents that first clip that you used when it's like twisting through these various axes, blatantly a model. It's just criminally obvious.
Yeah, I gotta add that was my favorite part, especially when you said, "How can anybody believe that this is actually a satellite in space?" And it's sitting there twisting around, and I'm like, "Wow!" Like I even just put in the chat, grown folks still believe this. It's unbelievable to me that people believe that that's going on. So great job.
That lunar lander, especially. I mean, if you sat down to design a lunar lander, how you would ever come up with something with all these little, like you say, with the cardboard and curtain rods and just things just glued on to something. It looks like you would have probably a smooth surface of something really thick. How did any of that survive, even if they just say, well, it was enclosed in the capsule until it got to where it was supposed to land, but it still had a bunch to go through before it got there, not to mention not a speck of dust anywhere, but yeah, who would design something like that? It's just unbelievable. Same with the ISS, really, but nothing's changed.
Has anybody got anything else? I've got one more point if nobody else wants
Now,
to do.
I got something from this last slide. Can everyone see this slide? I have to admit, Ben, this is the first time that I've seen something like this about the illuminance of the moon. Can you briefly go into this?
Yeah, essentially, there's an inverse relationship. So, with respect to the moonlight, the moon is supposedly 376,285 kilometers away from the Earth, but it has a luminance up to 1 lux. You plug in the numbers, and you get up to a lux that's so, I hate to even use the word, astronomical, that it's just absolutely, if once they got near the moon, if they were supposedly the Apollo astronauts were near the moon, it would have been so bright, it had been like landing on the sun, much even worse than that there would absolutely be no photos whatsoever. So it's absolutely using their laws, the inverse square law of light, to prove that there's absolutely no way that they landed on the moon. I think it's an indisputable proof, but maybe some of the others have comments on that.
I'll quote Red Dwarf, Nathan, smug mode.
You bastards, I just wrote down what I wanted to say, so I didn't forget.
Sorry. That's my point. Ben goes and does the maths, and I mean that's a great one to backwork maths to suggest how bright the moon must have been. They must have had some seriously good Ray-Bans. You know what I mean?
Oh, that wasn't my point. I was going to say,
thank God for that.
I was just going to say that the model work in Red Dwarf is far superior. So what you're watching, that clip I mentioned that I showed to my folks, it's just model work, and you can see far better examples of model work on shows like Red Dwarf. However, and I don't want this in any way to detract from what you're doing or anybody else that's covering NASA and their fakery, because it is good in terms of the exposure of that. However, for those of you watching in the audience, there's no necessity to necessarily have these arguments on account of the fact that claim to be spaceship, i.e. model that we've just discussed, is claimed to be in the sky vacuum, a violation of a natural law, the second law of thermodynamics. So instantaneously, there is actually no necessity to debunk the LM or the lunar lander on account of the fact that journey and those props are claimed to be in a second law of thermodynamics violation. So just wanted to drop that in.
Yeah, and the fact that they show zero video of that lunar lander actually being stuck in a vacuum, as even they admit that it failed its pressurized test when they tried to run it through a pressurized test, and it failed. But they didn't even make any design changes afterwards. They just fixed the holes and went ahead and still used it. I mean, the lunar lander is the most laughable piece of junk, and it just actually makes me cringe. The fact that any intelligent, reasonable, objective person could believe that piece of junk went to the moon in the vacuum of space and could survive those conditions is just asinine. And I actually feel embarrassed for them.
It's a substandard. It's a substandard tweaker shelter.
Yeah, but that's it. That's the bit they want, Ben. Sorry, what they want you to do is have the argument about whether or not it would survive in the vacuum of space. Because then the argument becomes about whether or not it would survive in the vacuum of space rather than whether or not the vacuum of space is real. So in my opinion, having considered this greatly, why would they make it so overtly obvious? Why would they make it so poor in terms of quality and believability? Well, because that isn't the purpose. The purpose isn't about whether or not that thing is real. It's about you having the discussion about whether or not it would survive in space. So it's akin to the argument where they have rockets, whether or not rockets will work in space. So you have a back and forth argument, or we have back and forth arguments on the debate about whether or not the rockets would work in the vacuum of space. And at the end, you win because you prove rockets won't work in a vacuum. But both parties are still begging the question that space is real and the sky is a vacuum. So in my humble opinion, a lot of the fakery is so poor because it doesn't actually matter whether or not you believe that thing is actually capable of going to the sky vacuum in terms of the pressurization test example, because the main purpose is that you understand that the sky is a vacuum at the end of that debate. So anyway,
a very good point. No, I agree. When you use their terms, you actually give them the presupposition that the space actually exists.
Exactly. You can't have tweaker shelters in Narnia.
Precisely.
All right. We ready to roll?
If-
This is a good. I'm going to spend a little bit more time on this on my own time. It's excellent, though. I really like it, Ben. All right. We ready to roll on? Any other comments? Here we go.
Then around April 2015, I had a larger paradigm shift. A friend of mine and a fellow NASA moon landings debunker, who many of you know as Jibby Jedi, sent me an email to check out a video by Mark Sargent. I was highly skeptical, but I soon realized that there was enough substance to the flat Earth that we needed a Socratic debate on the subject. Accordingly, I opened a debate on an internet forum where I invited flat earthers and globe earthers to present their best cases. At that time, I thought the flat Earth was a government-controlled psyop to discredit moon landing debunkers, and I wanted to save my fellow truth seekers from the government psyop. Wow, was I wrong. The flat Earth arguments were well-reasoned and substantial. Globe Earth arguments were circular, specious, and vacuous. I thought the globe advocates, whose numbers far outweighed the flat earthers, would destroy the flat earthers. But instead of presenting a strong case in favor of the official globe narrative, globe supporters relied on name-calling, fraudulent videos, feeble presuppositions, strawman arguments, conformity, and incessant appeals to authority. From the beginning, I heard the best case the globe had, and it was shockingly pathetic, and it still is. We already...
That's right. Shockingly pathetic. That's a good mind shot of what this is. That's all we've been getting. Unbelievable. Comments, questions?
What does specious mean?
Specious?
Yeah.
Lacking in logic, faulty reasoning.
Like fallacious.
Yes.
Specious. Like it. New word. Thanks.
Yeah, there's specious. It means there's a lot of holes in it, and it's hard to believe. There's not too much veracity to be found.
Superficially plausible, but actually wrong.
Well, I was talking with before Paula, Bad Christian, that's her name. She and I have been on these forums for a while, so she knows the whole story about how we were banned on several of these alternative websites for even discussing the flat Earth. Right, Paula?
Yeah, we were shoved in the basement at one place and just outright banned from another. It was Godlike Productions and Lunatic Outpost. Yeah, they wanted us in the basement in the ghetto among the name Lunatic Outpost, and we were too lunatic for them. There you go.
I couldn't believe how bad we were censored there. I mean, you could say that, Bigfoot, you're having a sexual relationship with Bigfoot and you had, Bigfoot children, you could say any nonsense there, but flat Earth, we were shut down. Paul and I go back for a few years now, so those were some good times.
Yeah, for a while. Yeah. Yeah,
right.
Obvious gatekeeping.
I loved when you call the globe arguments vacuous. That was very I think it was well placed. Vacuous, like the empty space of the vacuum that they believe, the sky vacuum they believe they live in. Yeah. Their globe arguments are like that. Empty.
Without a container.
Yeah, definitely without a container, right?
And the thing is, I could, and you probably could all say the same thing. I could give the globe arguments better than any of the globe propagandists out there right now. I mean, I know those are their arguments because I really wanted to debunk the flat Earth, and you start researching, you start looking into it, and you're like, wow, this just fails and fails and fails again and fails again. Well, just once you open that critical eye and objectively look at the evidence.
Yeah, it's kind of like you have no choice, right? You have to, when you get into this, you have to kind of learn the globe even better than you knew it before in order to debunk it. It's the only way to debunk it is to really, know it, understand what they're trying to tell you, and then match that to reality. and it's easy after that if you have the intellectual honesty to deal with what you come up with. So yeah, man.
Anything further?
We got another super chat.
Yeah, true. It's a long one. It's from Mark Croft, and he says, consider looking into the American polymath genius Charles Sanders Peirce and his gravity measuring work, and then between brackets, for US geology, and then, I don't know, engineering projects and rejection, career damage, and focal pendulum FAD. FAD. Don't know what he means by that.
Yeah, rejection of the so-called pendulum fad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for the super chat, man. All right. Any other comments? We're ready to rock and roll, baby.
Conformity. It is the top-down, systematic, institutional conditioning of humanity from cradle to grave, and it created the globe. Institutional conformity is founded on a blend of three elements: the knee-jerk Pavlovian response, group conformity, and the expert. These three elements have worked in tandem to force society into an unwitting love affair with the globe and space. Many of you are already familiar with the Pavlov's dogs experiment. Essentially, at the end of the 1800s, Ivan Pavlov was able to condition dogs to salivate every time a metronome was played. Pavlov did this by bringing out food while simultaneously playing a metronome. Only after a few repetitions, Pavlov removed the food, but the dogs would still salivate in response to just the sound stimulus. This is referred to as classic conditioning. Of course, we are not dogs, but to an extent, people can also be conditioned. Humanity has been conditioned to love space and the globe. That's a fact. You have seen the globe and other space images thousands of times in your life. In addition to loving space and the globe, you have been programmed to scoff at even the mere mention of the flat Earth through unrelenting, repeated conditioning since childhood in schooling, media, and entertainment. Although the narrative is changing from Columbus to ancient Greece, I was taught in elementary school that everyone knew Columbus was going to fall off the edge. But the smart Columbus knew better than the stupid flat earthers, and Columbus proved it was a globe. Even MTV's rebellious channel always started with the US government's Apollo mission to the moon. How rebellious is that? The programming has been unrelenting and everywhere. Public schooling and the grading system were instrumental in creating your inflated globe ego and that conditioned response. But here's a question for you. How do you know when you're having a conditioned Pavlovian response? A Pavlovian response isn't based on reason or intellect. Instead, it triggers a knee-jerk emotional response. It makes you upset or happy in some inexplicable manner. Hopefully, by recognizing that you are having a Pavlovian response, you can set aside the conditioning and instead use your intellect and reason to investigate the flat Earth.
Questions, comments?
And that was another key proof for me was the fact that when I started these big discussions about the flat Earth, back in 2015, is the response that we got. You could see that there's something special about the globe in people. That it's a religion for them. That it's as sacred to them as Jesus is to the Christian, and that by challenging that idea, challenging the globe, you trigger something in people where they're ready to almost kill you, and that's not an understatement. And so, what kind of programming have we been under to cause us to become this point that where we even hear the flat Earth, we're ready to take out a knife and kill the person? I mean, it's absolutely insane. And anyway,
I agree. I don't understand the response. I really don't. It's people tied.
It's conditioned.
Go ahead.
I was going to say it's conditioned into us in both regards. So you're describing the Pavlovian conditioning of globe love, but also we're conditioned with flat Earth hatred equally. In other words, it's condemned as being, for idiots, the idea of Philistines. It's degraded in such a way that is conditioned into you also, that you're going to have that Pavlovian response to somebody saying the Earth is flat. You go, great, if you're a globehead. and that's been programmed into us.
The Pavlovian, I think, for society with regards to hearing flat Earth is quite documented. It's ridicule. You know, they've spent a lot of time, money building ridicule into many different forms of media and entertainment to demonstrate that. So your gut reaction to hearing the bell is to laugh, because it comes from incredulity that somebody could be so stupid. That's for me, the Pavlovian way of doing it. And on that, I love this. Well, I got to admit, Ben, I hadn't heard this before. So to hear you coming into this kind of field's really cool. Because slight confession, when I did my A levels, I did the first year of physics, and it was just getting to the point of like doing mini balls in a mini shed was just getting, you're just like, this is just stupid. And I'd kind of had enough of it. So I ended up doing a new A-level, and I picked psychology. So when you were going through all this, especially some of the, the powers of conformity that really relate to this, I just thought it's a really fantastic bit of your presentation, this, because it really does, it kind of, it's describing the construct of the veil that's been thrown over this, and if you can start to grasp these simple psychological basic studies that were done, and that they're very fundamental in their conclusions, and you apply them to the paradigm we're sat in, it really is quite powerful at unpicking it.
Now, if you think about it, if you think about it, true science would welcome this discussion. They would love to have people out there. I mean, true scientists would love to have people out there with cameras filming the curvature, doing those things, testing the official models. But they don't want that at all. And actually, you're accused of being a crazy person just to even question it. So, I mean, the conditioning is pretty shocking when you really think about it. But another question I had for everyone is, am I alone in the idea that they're changing the narrative? How, Christopher Columbus in my days when I was in elementary school he was the one who basically discovered that the earth wasn't flat. Everyone thought the earth was flat at his time. And now it's been thousands of years ago, since the days of ancient Greece. Has anyone noticed that change in the narrative? I just thought that was fascinating.
Now, I got taught that it was an interplay between, it was really confusing. I remember thinking about it. It was an interplay between Columbus and Magellan. I said, wait a second, wasn't it Magellan that you said that sailed around the earth? Columbus didn't do that. I can remember that and saying, never mind. When's recess?
That's the thing, is people have short memories and they count on that, and they don't even care if it's still in books somewhere. People just don't care. It's like you were talking, Ben, earlier about, I think it was Nathan brought it up first, about not only what they want to push, but what they want to hate. It reminded me in 1984, Orwell's book, where they'd have the 2 minutes hate. And it was, the same thing, that's the principle that Orwell was getting across. And also in the movie The Island, on the positive side, where they would, all the clones were told that they would really love nothing more than to go to the island. And about the, the schools not wanting certain things to be taught. I always bring up the case, I don't know how many years ago in Ohio, where they debated whether high school students should be taught anything that might cause doubt on evolution, even though it's a scientific observation or whatever they wanted to call it. They had to debate whether or not students should be aware of problems with the theory. And to have that debate at all is a tell on what they're afraid of, because they can't have people thinking freely. They can't have people remembering, and going back to 1984 in the memory hole. It's the whole thing that we've been told about in fiction and in movies and books and all sorts of things that we keep falling for, is the sad part, that so many people, most people, keep falling for. And how to counter that is another movie quote from Ben-Hur: if you want to fight an idea, you have to use another idea. And that's kind of what we're doing. But whether it catches on, depends partly, at least, on how hard we try and how willing we are to take the consequences. And that's hard. It just is.
Point of order, Your Honor. You said the theory of evolution. There is no scientific theory of evolution.
You didn't see my air quotes.
Never was, never will be. That's just point of order, Your Honor. Carry on.
Yeah, air quotes were not recorded by the court reporter, so it's not my fault.
And listen, I want to apologize to the audience too, and I already did to Ben. There was some administrative issues with copyright and community guidelines. I was going to show the video. Everyone's seen it, of the people. Ben had it in his presentation, of the woman who goes, I think it's in a doctor's office, and there's a bunch of people in there, and they all stand up for no apparent reason. And after a couple times of them standing up, the woman starts to stand up, right? So all those people leave, and that woman that stood up, she started it all over again with new people coming in. So that was the group conformity part. I know everyone's seen it. I had to bypass it for admin issues. Okay?
And we do have super chats.
Go ahead.
Yeah, true. This one is again from Mark Croft. And he says, Charles Sanders Peirce, by the way, devised the Peirce quinquennial projection map, still in use for air pilot navigation systems.
I'll tell you what, you got your panties in the bunch over this Peirce guy. I'm going to have to go get his name and research it. Thanks for the super chat. All right, we ready to roll?
Let's do it.
Let's rock and roll, baby.
They control nearly all of the inputs, and the system then becomes self-policing. It doesn't matter that no one in the group knows why they believe or act in a certain way. The narrative has already been set and is followed religiously by the group in lockstep. Conformists are rewarded and promoted, and nonconformists are ridiculed and demoted. That's why calling flat earthers names is so important to this control mechanism. But the globe needed one more key ingredient, and that's the expert. The Milgram experiment is a fascinating example of the power of institutionalized conformity. In this case, the oblivious person at the electric shock generator called the teacher. Remember, this teacher is the only person who isn't an actor. A learner is placed in a different room. Each time the learner makes a mistake in his responses, the so-called teacher is instructed to give an increasing electric shock to the learner. In a way, it reminds me of the grading system. Via a microphone, the teacher can hear the fake screams when the supposed electric shock is administered to the learner. What you're watching is a modern version that obtained the same results as the original Milgram experiment. There were 30 switches on the shock generator marked from 15 volts, slight shock, to 450 volts, danger, severe shock. 450 volts is at a fatal level. On purpose, the learner gave mainly wrong answers. And for each wrong response, the oblivious teacher gave the learner an electric shock, and the teacher could hear the screaming through the microphone. If the teacher refused to administer a shock, the expert in the lab coat next to the teacher would say something like, "Please continue," or "You have no other choice but to continue." After 15 shocks or so, the learner in the other room would go silent so as to create the illusion that the learner was unconscious, or worse. But the shocks continued. What's so damn disturbing is the fact that 65% of the teachers continued to the highest level of 450 volts, which was identified as danger severe shock. All of the teachers continued to 300 volts. Despite their morals, ordinary people are likely to follow orders given by an authority figure, the expert. Milgram summed up the experiment as follows. The legal and philosophic aspects of obedience are of enormous import, but they say very little about how most people behave in concrete situations. I set up a simple experiment at Yale University to test how much pain an ordinary citizen would inflict on another person simply because he was ordered by an experimental scientist. Stark authority was pitted against the subject's strongest moral imperatives against hurting others. And, with the subject's ears ringing with the screams of the victims, authority won more often than not. The extreme willingness of adults to go to almost any lengths on the command of an authority constitutes the chief finding of the study and the fact most urgently demanding explanation. Authority won more often than not. Remember that 65% of the participants thought they severely injured or killed the other person based only on the simple orders of the scientist with white coat. That's the power of the expert. And that's why the cabal has created so many celebrity experts like Einstein, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Bill Nye the Science Guy, Stephen Hawking, Elon Musk, and others. George Orwell spoke about the expert this way. It will be seen that my reasons for thinking that the earth is round are rather precarious ones. It does not rest on reasoning or on experiment, but on authority. Most people, if asked to prove that the earth is round, would not even bother to produce the rather weak arguments I have outlined above. They would start off by saying that everyone knows the earth to be round, and if pressed further, would become angry. This is a credulous age, and the burden of knowledge which we now have to carry is partly responsible.
Comments, questions?
It's still frightening to me how the power of the authority figure and could get 65% of the participants to actually believe that they actually maybe killed the other person on the other side just because they are dressed in a lab coat and telling them to continue.
This is the hijacking of science that you're covering here. And you summed it up quite nicely at the end with the quote where it said it's not based on experiment. And that's what this is all about. And the definition you're giving and the quote gives is experts. But they've made a big mistake, they being these experts, when they started calling themselves scientists, because they're not. This Milgram experiment is not an experiment, but it's been called so. And the guy in a white coat, in many of the examples I've seen, is just Joe. He's another actor. Just tell the actor in the white coat to tell the person who's sat at the desk to keep flipping the switches. And if they don't, just say you have to. In other words, the guy he's not a professional in any capacity whatsoever. He's just got a white coat on. But he's being called, in the mind's eye of the person at the desk, a scientist. And this is a scientific experiment. Therefore, you've just got to comply with the scientific experiment. And at the end, we'll have some empiricism. It's like, no, it's none of the above. This is the very essence of the hijacking of science and substituting it with expert opinion and consensus. So the understanding of what science actually is where their downfall is coming right now. Like on this very show, we are explaining to the audience that they're not giving you science. They just say it because you were told when you're about 11 years old that science is empirical. And it is. But that's not what they're doing.
I'd echo a very similar thing, Nath. It's to take it out. The experiment proves, or in this case, the study. Before John jumps at me, proves the concept is that people are very susceptible, even when it's contradictory to their better senses. They're very susceptible to the influence of the expert, and I'd extrapolate that out in terms of what we were saying in terms of media control, the likes. And what they've spent a long time doing is taking science and probably more correctly elevating pseudoscience to our understanding of science, so that this repetition of this pseudoscience is the expert, and therefore we conform. And that seems to be the power in society that they've developed with this, in terms of this psychological study, is replicating that, not so it's an individual any further that is the expert, but actually the stated pseudoscientific facts. That makes sense?
Yes. I like the citation previously. It said experimental scientist. Isn't that a tad redundant? Is there another kind? My word.
Any more? Any other comments?
I do want to add on that Ben was talking about before about narratives changing. Well, I don't know if you've encountered it, but there seems to be a narrative that has changed greatly. I'm sure when you got into this, you heard there's all this science that proves the globe, right? That's what we heard all the time. And lately, it's kind of changed. Now it's science doesn't prove things, right? So the ball argument has gotten to the point where now they're trying to convince us that science isn't static. It doesn't prove anything. It's flexible. You could just do this and it proves that, and then you could just do whatever you want with it, because I think they've realized their arguments have failed them, and now they need that wiggle room to get out of the mess that they've made, because their arguments have failed them, and it's failing them every day. And now they're actually arguing that science doesn't prove things and that you can't actually establish cause and effect with experiments. So yeah, the narratives are changing all over the place, man.
I think this is what we see every day with the trolls in the chats. As soon as you try to talk, someone makes a claim and you make a counterclaim, and then they say, that isn't what I said, and change it and try to switch sides in the argument. And it's just a daily occurrence. And of course, this is what they're conditioned to do in the schools, but, mainly parroting, but the technique or whatever, that's too good of a word for it, but the tactic is the same. It's just on a smaller scale. But that's why trolls do what they do, because even if they're not conscious of it themselves, as the people who instigate these things are, they still are having the same effect, where they just keep us like cats chasing a laser dot, always moving the goalposts, always, modifying their argument so that they can claim that you don't understand, et cetera, et cetera. And this is just it is in a way a grand psychological experiment. And some of them will even say that in the chats. They'll come and say, well, we're here to study you, or this or that. And I can half believe it, because it is a study in psychology to see how people entertain the trolls, or, get upset if you don't entertain the trolls. Oh, you're censoring. There's always something. It's the same principle.
I caught on to that little game. I caught on to that little game a while ago, and then started about 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago, and everyone's seen it. Putting the scientific method, the steps down on paper, and then have them come on and say, yeah, I got scientific evidence, and then write out their words. Right? That was key. That's the game. That's the game they play. They can't get around that, though. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, getting around it is a way of avoiding the cognitive pain that they would experience if they recognised their own doublespeak. And I'm glad you've mentioned what you have as a preamble, because I was going to add this before you said it. But absolutely, getting them to recognise that they don't have scientific validity has left them in a position of just cognitive pain, because there's no escape. They just have to deny or avoid the subject or obfuscate. So much of what's happening in terms of, at least on the debate, isn't akin to an argument anymore, because the arguments get shut down very, very quickly. It's more akin of how can we obfuscate this cognitive pain that we're going to experience when they get to the demolition of what we've claimed is science. And as Chocolate pointed out earlier, the narrative has to change. They can't continually assert that their pseudoscience is proving the globe when we're asking them to give us the actual science, and they don't have any. Then they have to say pseudoscience doesn't prove anything. Now, you've got to bear in mind for the audience that when I say the word pseudoscience, they would actually substitute it for science. So they'd say, science proves the globe. Here, give us your science. What's the independent and dependent variable? What's the hypothesis? What's the observed phenomena? What's the null? And they go, we haven't got any of that. But science doesn't prove anything. And what they actually mean is, we only had pseudoscience just so stories that we can change at will, so long as nobody questions the authority man in white coat. And when it's questioned or asked for actual science, we'll just boldly state that science doesn't prove anything. Yeah, it does. You just don't have any, globeheads.
Yeah, exactly. You got it. All right, we ready to roll? Here we go.
Power of institutionalized conformity is evident in the following example. In this video, you can hear the child proclaim that the so-called space rocket is actually falling down, as it truly is. Just listen.
It's drifting. That's bad.
It's doing good so far.
Is it? Is that what always happens? looks bad to me. It's in space. Or is it? Is that it?
Yep, I think that's it.
Rockets don't go to space. They arc and fall into the water, as you can see in numerous examples. The child gets it because he hasn't been programmed extensively enough to unquestioningly accept NASA. Instead, the adult won't allow himself to question his many years of space indoctrination, even though his eyes tell him otherwise. Here's from another video with a different child. The child keeps stating that the space shuttle rocket is going down, but the parent tries to explain it away as though the Earth is churning.
Right in the middle. Oh no, it's going down.
Well, Mark.
That was so loud.
Right there.
I did. It's going down.
Peter, for Sandy, is it turning or is the Earth spinning?
A rainbow.
Sandy? It's not turning, the Earth is spinning. Sandy? That's going straight up, it's just the Earth is turning, we're moving away from it.
Truly, the children were wiser than their parents who refused to see the obvious. The children could easily recognize that the rocket is not going into space, but the parents would not allow themselves to question it. What do your eyes tell you? Just look at this space shuttle launch. Does any person here really think that this space shuttle is in space? It's laughable. Do you understand what I mean by institutionalized conformity and how powerful it is and how we need to be wary of it? I need you to set aside your Pavlovian response, your conditioning, your group conformity, your NASA and other proclaimed expert authority figures, and just use your intellect here today, as an objective, reasonable person should. Flat Earth is founded on observable, testable, and repeatable experiments that you can do yourself. Flat Earthers don't want group or informational conformity. We don't want you to appoint anyone as your expert. We want you to think for yourself and to test the flat Earth yourself, and then share your findings with the rest of us. That is the beauty of the flat Earth.
Too funny. Go.
The sky is not a vacuum.
I just love those kids.
Can I add? Yeah, I was just gonna say the kids are the best part because they, with their innocence and just common sense, can look up and see these things going down and just say, it looks like it's going down. It looks bad. And then you have the adults sitting there arguing, is the Earth turning or what's going on? Like, it's like these kids can figure it out and grown adults can't see the problems in this. It's amazing.
They're cute. They're cute at that age.
And yeah, that first clip, especially the top of the arc of the smoke trail, isn't even as high as cirrus clouds. I mean, it's just above the cumulus clouds. So that's not that high. I mean, weather balloons go higher and they go straight up. So, yeah, anybody with just thinking and common sense, whatever that is, would see that that did arc way too soon, and it had nothing to do with Earth spin because the clouds weren't also, being dragged along by Earth spin. But no, people don't think about that.
Oh, and there you see some of that
like
double
story,
think.
Right? It's like the story of the king without clothes. I mean, the child speaks the truth.
You see the double think where in one hand the globe supporter will say, wait a second, the Earth is turning. That's what's causing it to go that direction. And then the next globe supporter will say, well no, the atmosphere changes moves with the Earth itself, like spokes on a bicycle wheel. And so it's, you can see they always adopt this double think where they can adopt two mutually exclusive positions and hold to it faithfully.
They don't try that anymore. We've buried that Coriolis argument. That's just nonsensical, begging the question from the gate. So they're just gonna have to prove that the Earth is spinning. We don't do any more of this. The atmosphere is going with the Earth, but we have all these different wind directions. Like, come on, guys. It's about to be
Um,
2020. We got to get into grown folk territory.
yeah.
The thing with children is they're very in tune with their environment at that young age. So they're exploring, they see stuff, they can judge things, they can work things out. The brains are actually working. They haven't had the chance to have that conditioning that's telling them that, well, when you see that rocket going up, it is going up. When they're looking at it and they can see that it's actually going down. You know, it's very, very obvious in that video that the children knew exactly what was going on. They just said it as they saw it.
It looks bad. I couldn't help but smile and just say, yeah, kid, it really does look bad. It's too bad all the adults with you are just cheering it on and not thinking the same thing. Damn shame.
Okay, I don't want to demean anything that goes on in terms of debunking rockets for these reasons, but if someone can just play along with me, where's this rocket going?
The sky vacuum?
Into a vacuum?
Oh no, that's not possible. You see, the gas that we're all breathing would fill that space that it's claiming to go to. So it's definitely not going to a sky vacuum known as outer space. So as far as I'm concerned, notwithstanding all of the excellent work that we're analysing here, and all those reasons are true, however, it's claiming to be travelling to a place that doesn't exist. And you can see it with your own eyes. It's still in the sky amongst the gas we're breathing. It's just blatantly obvious.
Yeah,
it hasn't gone to a second law of thermodynamics violation sky vacuum. There it still is. What's that you say? It's coming back down as well. Yeah, that's a nail in the coffin as far as I'm concerned.
All right, we ready to rock?
Because, you know, we live in an approximately closed system.
Yeah, and approximately closed, yeah. Just a little pregnant.
I just
A little bit.
For me, John, that last one, particularly with the, wasn't so much the voice of the children that was interesting, but in relation to what Ben had shown earlier with regards to conformity, and maybe a little dissonance. Well, actually, probably superlumin dissonance here, because, you know, even though the child's eyes are the same as the adult's eyes, they're both seeing the same thing. There's no preconception in the child. There's nothing to change what the reality of what they're observing is. But for the adult, there has to be. And they're grasping at straws so much that the only way in which they can blend their observations to the illusion that this thing's going to space is to suggest that this curvature is based upon the rotation of the Earth, which I found quite interesting, actually. That the adult, because I don't think they were fed that line, but somehow their dissonance is, their programming has reached out to give them an answer to the extreme that extremity of curvature that they see with the smoke plume has got to be due to the rotation of the Earth, which is just. I thought that was more interesting than the honesty.
He says it.
The
He says it twice. He says it twice. So you can almost hear the cogs turning. You're saying, oh, well, he wasn't fed that line. Well, no, he wasn't, but you could almost hear the cogs turning because he says it's the Earth turning. Then there's a bit of rumbling. A few other people say something. The kid mutters something. But then there's a fair few seconds that elapses before he comes up with a slightly more extended explanation. In other words, he's gone, yeah, it's just Earth turn. It's gone, is it? How does that work? Click, 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 cogs turn, cogs turn. It's because, and then he gives his, like I say, slightly more long-winded bullshit version.
He comes up with a bullshit excuse for himself, and then he tries to sell it to his child.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
But
pretty sorry.
I think it's because he saw, I mean, it's an obvious case of cognition, right? He saw the same problem that the kid saw. But because he's got in his mind, he's already got all these reasons and excuses and stories, he's got to figure out which one of those stories makes sense for what he's seeing. As opposed to the kid is just like, it looks like it's going down. Looks bad.
Well, yeah, it's the mind control. The mind control, his eyes and his senses are telling him that the rocket's going down and the rocket isn't going to space. In fact, it isn't going straight up anymore. It's actually going level and then starting to come down again. So his eyes are telling him that. But the conditioning, the brainwashing that he's had in his entire life is then saying, no, you're wrong. What you're seeing isn't right. There is another explanation for this. So it's all to take away from your senses, essentially. We see things. That's it. but they then have this brainwashing that comes in that tells them something different.
It's a pride thing as well, isn't it? So, the adult's going to feel like, I'm in a position to educate this child. He's saying something that, to me, is incorrect. It's not coming down, obviously. It's going off to space, the sky vacuum. So he's going to say, well, this is my opportunity to educate the child and tell the child what's actually what, because I'm the adult and I know. I know Earth's turning. You didn't know that, did you, kid? Well, there you go. Now I've taught you something. Aren't I great?
Yep, got it. All right, let's roll, man.
Flat Earth usually begins with the globe curvature formula. At least that's where it started for me. According to the globe math, 8 inches per mile squared represents how much a distant object should be hidden below the horizon from a ground level view based on the official mathematical dimensions of the Earth, i.e. a ball Earth with a circumference of 24,901 miles. Under the globe, this is mathematically accurate for all observable distances. So, what's the alleged curvature drop at 6 miles under the globe? I hope everyone can do this now. Square the miles, 6 times 6, multiplied by 8 inches, which equals 288 inches. Divide by 12 to convert from inches to feet. In 6 miles, there should be a curvature drop of 24 feet. It gets exponentially worse for the globe. 8 miles distance, 43 feet should be hidden below the horizon. 10 miles, 67 feet. 20 miles, 266 feet. 50 miles, 1,666 feet. 100 miles distance, 6,667 feet should be hidden below the horizon. This massive curvature drop should be seen and experienced every day, but it isn't. And I will show you many examples unquestionably proving this curvature does not exist. But let's first talk about the horizon. If you know my channel, then you probably already know that the horizon test is my favorite proof of the flat Earth. It is so easy and so overlooked. Globe supporters and flat earthers have very different views of what the horizon is. Under the globe model, the horizon is a concrete and tangible physical barrier demarcating the point when distant objects are obscured by the curvature. Under the globe, the horizon could theoretically appear closer due to haze, miraging, waves, and swells, but the horizon could never extend further than that mathematical, physical Earth curve edge. On the other hand, flat earthers correctly recognize that the horizon is not tangible, but a matter of perspective, and thus the horizon rises with the observer, an impossibility under the globe. The fact that railroad tracks meet at the horizon proves the horizon is a matter of perspective. Of course, haze and poor viewing conditions reduce the distance to the apparent horizon, but so long as we have a nice clear day without miraging, we can test the globe horizon and determine its veracity. The globe fails miserably. The distance to the globe physical horizon is roughly 1.225 times the square root of the height of the observer. But you can also use a calculator. This globe curvature calculator calculates both the distance to the horizon and the amount that should be hidden behind the alleged globe curvature. Both of these calculations can prove the flat Earth. You've probably seen the 8 inches per mile squared curvature chart many times, but here's a quick distance to the horizon chart to help you get familiar with the numbers. For example, a person standing on a shore at 6 feet above the water should not see a horizon beyond a mere 3 miles under the globe model. That's definitely measurable if there was such a globe horizon. All the observer needs to prove the flat Earth is a pair of binoculars. But here's a clip where National Geographic was less than honest with its viewers. In this clip, National Geographic stated that because of the curvature of the Earth, that 1.5 stripes are hidden behind the curvature. If you're intelligent, you already caught the problem. The horizon is beyond the flag. Therefore, absolutely none of the flag can be hidden behind an alleged curvature. That's impossible. I hope you understand that. National Geographic went to that lake to prove the curvature, but instead proved that National Geographic is a purveyor of disinformation, and there are so many more like them.
Ballers, from this point on, you need to turn away because you're going to need your therapist. I'm just going to tell you that. Questions, comments?
Yeah, that National Geographic flag was absolutely exceptional. The fact that the horizon is clearly visible way further in the distance behind the boat is so damning to their own version of what they actually saw. In actual fact, it supports the idea that things get compressed when they get low down towards the water. In fact, that flag, we saw all the colours on the flag at the bottom, but they were certainly compressed in the last two regions, the last two layers, the different colours there. But clearly, as I say, the horizon just extended beyond that. So all it was showing that there was an optical effect that happens on objects over water, for sure, obviously compression, but the horizon was so far away, completely debunked their claims. It's over with there and then.
I've had quite a few people try to change the definition of what the globe horizon is. They'll say, "Oh, yeah, it is a matter of perspective," but they're still stuck with that fact that they claim it's a physical barrier. And so their perspective, if they're actually considering perspective, it would only lessen that amount. It could not actually increase it. And so it's actually kind of entertaining for me to see them try to explain away how this horizon is seen so much further than it should be possible under the globe. And when I say maximum distance, that's the truth. They try to change that and say, "Oh, that's not the maximum distance because you have refraction." No, that has to be the maximum distance because any wave, any haze, any atmospheric condition will only shorten that distance. It cannot increase that distance because that is the physical barrier.
And to nail home the point about this horizon and the fact that you can see further, that's actually showing that you have flat and level water. And what's the one thing that you can't have on a globe with the circumference that we're told and the way that gravity is supposed to act? You can't have flat water. You cannot have a horizon further than the designated distances told us, 8 inches per mile squared. We can't have that. Otherwise, you have flat water. If you have flat water, you have no gravity. No gravity isn't affecting the water. It's not curving at 8 inches per mile squared. So it's over with there and then. This horizon test is absolutely a killer for the globe. Simple as that.
It also highlights the bait and switch aspect of what they're doing when they talk about their reified sphere model and their leading edge of the sphere. So they're saying the leading edge of the sphere will obscure a certain amount that's behind that hump between you and your target. Well, in actuality, our horizon is not the leading edge of a sphere. It's a not actual location where the sky appears to meet the ground, the vanishing point, the diffraction limit, whatever you want to call it. It's not an actual location. Now, when Neil deGrasse Tyson's got his beach ball and he's talking about not being able to see curvature from only a millimetre above the beach ball, that's the bait and switch. Because on their model, their leading edge of a sphere, if you were to literally hold a ball in front of you, you can see their edge. But that isn't what we get in actuality. In actuality, we have a horizon over water, or if you can see at any great distance, you're not looking at the edge of physical obstruction. And this was detailed right at the beginning of the show when we were talking about the sonar. You're not looking at a physical obstruction. You're looking at the diffraction limit. They've hijacked that point, the horizon, and called it the leading edge of a sphere model. It isn't.
I love it where you say, "Show us the edge." You know, I mean, they're the ones who believe in this crazy edge that does not exist.
Yeah, I completely forgot about that. I will thank you, Ben. Yeah, absolutely. So in the last few debates, I've been highlighting the fact that we are charged with an edge as flat earthers. Where's your edge? Take me to your edge, fundies. Well, if I could get someone to take us to the edge and take video footage, well, if you've got video footage and it's live, I might believe in an edge. Well, I've never mentioned an edge. I don't know what the hell anyone's talking about. I realise there's plenty of people with azimuthal equidistant projections that are reified in their flat earth worlds. That ain't me. I don't have an edge. I don't know what you're talking about. What bloody edge? But they do. They've got the edge of their sphere. Their boats go over it. Well, where's your edge? Take me to that edge. What's that? You say it moves with my position. Well, that makes it apparent, doesn't it? As I get to the edge, another edge will form. You phrase this much better than I do, Chocolate. Take me to your edge.
You put Chocolate on the spot, man.
He does. Well, Chocolate, I don't know how he phrases it, but this is one of those times that you hope Chocolate will summarise my point better than I will. But the point is that they have an edge that they can't get to. And we are asked for an edge all the time. Well, isn't that a shock? You know, the best form of defence is attack. So rather than defending the fact that they've reified their globe model into the edge they call the edge of a sphere, and in actuality, the horizon, why not just ask them for an edge? That's a much better tactic, isn't it? Ask them continually for edge, and hopefully no one will notice the fact that we're reifying the horizon to the edge of our sphere model.
I agree, Nate. I mean, that's the point for me. That the first thing they want, but for them, mathematically, there is, when viewing over distance, unfortunately, an edge. And the first thing they try to do is always assume that the camera's pointing down to the maximum thing to take in the image. Now, a lot of Ranty's work has also demonstrate that that's incorrect, and it kind of demonstrates that it's all about viewing angle, particularly when low down looking up. You can get a slightly better view. But for them, the first point of defense is to try and get that edge to be called the horizon. And when you unpick that, they still have to have this edge because of their mathematical model of a ball. There's no way other than to view on it. And once that's obviously undone, then that's when we have to invent stuff such as 7/6R to explain these observations that are clearly impossible, because even looking down as much as you can't still see through the edge of their ball. And it is, as you say, quite a telling point that they're always pushing us for an edge, because their edge is quite telling, and they try to hide it.
You've been rumbled, fundies, asking us for an edge. It was too telling. Now we're going to start asking you. Take us to the edge of your sphere, you fundy idiots.
Maybe we could ask Sanic if he's got an address to that edge, since he believes that the horizon's an actual location that you can get to.
Double or nothing.
Maybe double or nothing.
PO Box 666, NASA.
It was, if I could get a bit geeky on that, and I shared some of the maths with Ben, because we were looking at the formula, and it's quite interesting actually, because if it is based on this radius of the Earth, I was just doing a little bit comparing the 8 inches per mile formula to my maths, and I was just double checking it and looking at the radius, because I'd seen a few numbers. So I went and looked at the equatorial radius, the polar radius, and there is quite a difference, and it actually does fluctuate by 0.02 of an inch either side of 8 inches based on those two things. So if you were going to, and if you are a baller, you have to use the R value, you really do need to know which direction you're traveling to and you're looking in, because that will vary your edge.
Did you take the ellipsoid into account?
That's exactly what I'm saying. Because of the differential, I think it's like 13-mile differential radius between the polar radius and an equatorial radius.
Yeah, but that's so minute.
well, wait a second.
30 miles, tiny.
Wait a second. Did Al Baruni?
It plays out.
Did Al Baruni take this into account?
On top of his mountain.
I just said in Discord, somebody in Discord challenged me. I hope you're listening, Mr. Al Baruni. He gave me this proof last night. I haven't heard this proof in years, but last night I got proof for the Earth. Al Baruni, I said, perfect timing. Thanks. Stay tuned to the show tomorrow, because I'll tell you what, it's going to get bad for you over the next 5 minutes. But go ahead. Did you want to finish up real quick, Adam?
Well, just to respond to Ranty, yeah, the equatorial equivalent over the first mile is 8.01 inch, and the polar equivalent is 7.98 inch. So, if you were trying to place something specific, I know it's minute, it's against the quantitative or qualitative, but there is actually a difference, and obviously that would become very complex if you weren't just traveling either directly north or directly south or directly east or west. As soon as you start to put a bearing on that, you'd have to factor those two and how that would play out over your ellipsoid.
Yeah, but didn't Ben qualify it into the distance that everyone can see? Because the sagitta, whether it's the sagitta by Pythagorean construction or trig construction, they're all pretty much the same up to 1,000 miles. Am I correct?
Yeah, it is very close. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it is very close. There's certainly optically, visually, there's next to no difference because obviously the variance does grow the greater the difference. So I'm seeing 0.002 of an inch difference as I demonstrated on that first mile. Now that will play out on the variance. Now what I did was take an intermediary, so I took a radius of 3959 miles. Those polar were 3963 and 3950. But as you play out, it does fit very close. So I think unless you were talking about like laser measurements over short of 3, 4, 5 miles, it doesn't make a big difference.
Right.
If you're looking at 25 miles, for example, then you're still only looking at a difference of 1.2 inches. The interesting point is, because it is an approximation, it's a function, the 8 inches per mile squared, as opposed to the way in which a circle grows with its variance.
I'm just going to add one more point, QE. I'm really sorry.
No, go ahead.
There's another one that you missed out. So the angular resolution limit also tracks very, very closely up to about 1,000 miles.
Right, exactly. You got it. The hijacking part. Exactly.
Well,
yep.
That's probably about right, because at about 100 miles is the worst variance between 100 and 200 miles, and actually it's 15 inches at 100, and then it actually starts to decrease at 200 as the two lines re-emerge. But then by the time you get to 300, it's gone the other way at a variance of 162 inches, and then, like I say, after that, it really does start to skew. At 1,000, I've got 4,000 odd inches variance from the two. Now, I suppose optically that again is going to be very difficult or practically not non-matterable to discern. But just for the geeks, it is. That's why I did it. I kind of wanted to see where the lines intersect and skew. So I think reasonably for any visual observation, it's as good as.
No. I've got to stop you. You're not talking about optically. When you're talking about the mathematics of how much presupposed curve there is when you beg the question, assume R, and plug it through a calculator, you're not even talking optically in terms of how you're quantifying it mathematically. You're talking about feet and inches. If you were talking about what you'd actually see, you'd talk about, at the very minimum, you talk about the arc seconds potentially of what you're looking at. You wouldn't be talking about the feet and inches value if you're describing something optical, right? That's where the hijack perspective.
Right.
Sorry, I meant observing, Nathan. Sorry, I was meaning if it was just a visual observation, the differential between the actual and the approximation of 8 inches per mile is negligible.
Right.
It would only be if you were using equipment that the variance I'm demonstrating would be of any real significance.
Yeah, that's where the jungle gym comes in, because there's geometric drop and the visual part of it. See, there's an interplay between those two, and they get in there and start using the jungle gym, right? We caught you. You hijacked perspective and called it curvature. We caught you about 2 years ago. It's over, right? So, can we continue?
We do have one super chat, I think.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, we got one again from Mark Croft, and he's talking about that Charles
Pierce.
Sanders Pierce again. And he says he was ruined and suppressed by the official astronomer and slow-wit fraud Simon Newcomb and kept off the transit of Venus expedition. Newcomb was the mentor and controller of Albert Mickelson's career.
Ah, very interesting. All right, I'm
So
going to.
this guy might know some. Maybe he wants to do a little presentation about this guy.
About Pierce, right. Yeah. He's got me interested. Keep on super chatting this Pierce. You're gonna force my hand. All right. we're going to have to continue, pick up the pace a little bit. I do want to, I do have a public service announcement. Viewer discretion advised. This is detrimental to your spinning ball space monkey religion, Baltards. Please turn away because Ben's about to get medieval on you. Okay?
But let's begin with a positive, easy to proof the flat Earth using the horizon. This was my wife's video. We're looking at some footage filmed by Wide Awake at an observation height of 2.3 feet. At an observation height of 2.3 feet, the distance to the horizon under the globe model would be a maximum distance of 1.86 miles. That is very short. We are looking at the Bayport Channel entrance light. It was 3.49 miles away from the observer. According to the curvature calculator, only 1.8 feet should be hidden. Not a big deal, right? But remember that the horizon was supposed to be only 1.86 miles away, and that rack is 3.49 miles away. Does the globe model work here? Of course it doesn't. And here's the reason why I love these horizon distance experiments. The presupposing globe propagandist will tell you that the image of the horizon has jumped the curvature and you're staring at a mirage. Why is that explanation ridiculous? Because the entire rack is still there. Refraction cannot remove the bulge of water in front of the rack and then move the bulge many miles further away without affecting the rack. The entire rack cannot be a mirage since only 1.8 feet should have been hidden. So the globe propagandist wants you to think that the rack stayed in place unaffected while the water bulge selectively disappeared and then reappeared miles further away. They not only want you to believe in bendy water, they want you to believe that this bendy water is magic. I know it's a strong delusion, but please open your eyes. But it gets worse. Here's footage of another rack called Cutter Rock that was 11.24 miles away from my friend. According to the curvature calculator, 59 feet should have been hidden behind the globe. The top light on Cutter Rock is only 16 feet high. You shouldn't see the light whatsoever. Already the globe model fails. But let's look at the horizon distance. You can't see the horizon in this footage, but then Wide Awake was clever and took a time-lapse photo of Cutter Rock with a higher exposure. Here's the photo. What is that? The horizon is beyond Cutter Rock. Remember, the horizon was supposed to only be a maximum distance of 1.86 miles, and this photograph shows a horizon beyond 11.24 miles. Ouch. Now that hurts the globe. Here.
It's going to get worse. Hold on. Questions, comments, quickly.
I just wanted to say it's nice that the Natural Geographic example was basically akin to the same thing, right? I love it.
Flat water. That should be our new term. Flat water. You can't have flat water on a globe.
What globe?
Exactly.
Thanks.
It's a bit like poker, this, isn't it? It's kind of like you've laid that card and you've obviously got the observations that they'd like to paint as curvature and the likes, but because you demonstrate that their leading edge, their horizon is so far away, it kind of has to make them recognize the optical effects and what's actually going off based on angular resolution, blah 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 blah. Do you know what I mean? It those kind of observations mean they can do one or the other. You know what I mean? You can't have your horizon there and these same effects that you previously explained as curvature.
Well, flat water kills gravity. It's as simple as that. And if you can prove that the horizon is further than the globe says it should be, then you've debunked gravity. It's game over there and then. You can't have flat water.
How can you debunk something that doesn't exist in the first place?
Debunking fairy tales.
What's gravity?
Yeah, we're going to go down. Yeah, please don't. That's for another show.
I know.
You remember at times we've got to go in the trenches with these guys and just ram it home.
Yeah.
How you cannot have a horizon far further than it should be on a globe model. You can't have it because you can't have flat water because gravity curves the ball. Remember in the globe model, you can't have that. You can't have flat water. Flat water kills their argument.
It's going to get real bad for them right
Before
now.
you start, I just wanted to again emphasize that I did put out that video, "Oh Curvature, Where Art Thou?" Recently that again verifies the same thing. Wide Awake got his camera down to just a couple feet off the water. The horizon should have been under 1.9 miles, and it's again beyond Cutter Rock, further than 11.22 miles, and it's further. And at that angle, that's miles further. So I mean, it's just absolutely impossible under the globe.
I missed
Anyway,
that
continue.
one. I missed that one.
Oh,
What did you say? Oh, curvature, where art thou? Is that what you said?
Yeah, it's the title of the video. It's a few videos back, but go look it up. It's pretty good.
That's awesome.
All right, ready to roll?
Super chat.
Go ahead.
Yeah, this one is from Paul Hall, and he says, "Shout out to the apparent horizon."
Shout out back at you. Thank you. All right, ballers, turn away now.
Okay, can I just shout out everybody in the chat? Like, just shout out to all the people in here. Hope everybody's having a good holiday and destroying this globe. Shout out to Super Curve, who's still in the chat, struggling, trying to convince people that they live on a magical spinning water ball. Hopefully, you guys will get some curvature proof by 2020, because this was supposed to be dead years ago, guys. Why are we still here?
Shout out for Super Curve Retracted.
Thank you.
And another super chat just came in.
Pierce?
No.
Can I do it? Can I do it?
No, it's from Cleary.
Cleary.
Yeah, and Cleary says, you are big enough to see the curve that ships disappear behind."
Another one just came in. Flat on flat Earth.
You got Betty earning her pesos today.
You see that one, Betty? Well, anyway, he says, "Love and respect to all honest people."
All right.
All right.
Should we move on with the video?
Yeah, we're rolling. We're getting ready to roll. Let's go. Thanks for the super chats, guys. Let's go. Ballers, like I said, turn away now.
Here's another example. For this observation, BMLS B69 was at an elevation of 105 feet above the water. At an observation height of 105 feet, the globe horizon would have to be closer than 12.6 miles. There are 3 oil platforms. The first one was 11 miles away, the second was 22 miles away, and the third was 26.4 miles away. Based on the official dimensions of the globe, the horizon line should be in front of the second platform. In fact, the second platform should be hidden by 59 feet. The third platform should be almost entirely hidden by 129 feet. As you can see with your own eyes, the horizon, which was supposed to be under 12.6 miles, is not only beyond the second platform, the horizon is beyond the third platform, further than 26.4 miles. We know that none of the third platform is obstructed by the curvature, as the horizon is beyond the platform. Are we to believe that the bulge of water selectively disappeared from in front of the second platform, where it was supposed to be hiding 59 feet, and then the bulge of water reappeared well beyond the third platform, and this disappearing and reappearing magic effect happened all without affecting the 2 platforms themselves? For this next test, BMLS B69 brought his camera down to just 1 foot off of the water. At 1 foot, the distance to the horizon of the globe must be closer than 1.2 miles. There were 2 platforms visible. The closer one on the right is Platform Hill House at 6.21 miles away. The further one on the left was Platform Habitat. It was 9.41 miles away. Please raise your hand if you see the problem. Where is the horizon line? Remember, the horizon was only supposed to be 1.2 miles away, and the horizon is not only past the first platform at 6.21 miles, it is well beyond the second platform, beyond 9.41 miles. Using this example, I want to teach you how the apparent horizon distance can be used to determine the minimum size of the globe if we did indeed live on a globe. Let's assume that the horizon in this example is at least 10 miles away. Obviously, it's further, but 10 miles is fine. But is it possible that no one ever thought to measure the size of the Earth by measuring the distance to the horizon? It seems so basic. You believe in a ball? Well, go out and measure it. Where is my Nobel Prize for what should be elementary knowledge? Here's the theoretical radius of the Earth formula using the Pythagorean theorem, and it can be used for any horizon observation. I don't want to bore you with all the calculations, but at an observation height of 1 foot and a horizon at least 10 miles away, the globe would have to have a radius of 264,000 miles. That's a radius 67 times larger than the alleged size of the globe Earth. I think this disposes of the big Earth theory. I asked Nathan Oakley from the Flat Earth Debate channel to share his understanding of the horizon issue, and this was his response.
Hello, Dallas. The horizon would be most accurately described as an arbitrary position where the sky appears to meet the ground. However, if you are a fundamentalist religious zealot with a globe belief, well, then that's not an arbitrary position where the sky appears to meet the ground. It is, in fact, the reified edge of a sphere world based on the radius value, an R value that is reified into existence by way of a begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator that takes an arbitrary position where the sky appears to meet the ground and turns it into the reified edge of a sphere world. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you in Flat Earth Debate.
Turn out the lights. Party's over. Al Baruni. Goodness, I hope you're listening. Questions, comments?
I still can't, one of those things that you can go out there and you can measure. I mean, you can measure the supposed minimum size of this alleged globe just by going out there with binoculars and things like that. How come nobody has ever done that throughout all of history? How come we don't read about all these experiments that they conducted to measure the distance to the horizon so that they could create the distance to the size of the globe? No one has ever done that. And that fact alone proves that they're obfuscating history. Because if there was a globe, everybody would have gone out there and measured it, and you would have seen detailed measurements, people with their telescopes, all of that would have happened. It never did.
And I've been pointing out as well over the years that all of these curve calculators assume that the horizon is the tangent to the circle where things drop off, but the observer is the tangent. So everything must drop from the observer's position, and it isn't the horizon. That's not where the tangent line should be, even if they are just drawing a two-dimensional geographical shape, a circle with a tangent line. Or if you take a rubber ball and lay a ruler on top of it, that ruler, where it sits in the ball, is the observer, not the horizon. So when they draw little pictures of the observer on the left side of the tangent and the object that's missing on the right, they're already misrepresenting reality.
Well, all their calculations are set in stone right now, so they can't go back on anything. The size is the size, and that's that. And the simple fact is, as Taboo Conspiracies pointed out, is that these horizon tests are showing that the water is laying pretty damn flat. And that kills gravity. It kills their model. Their globe model cannot work with these observations. It's just as simple as that. And it doesn't need any further explanations other than you can't have flat water. All water has to bend. It has to curve. If you live on a globe, it has to curve at 7.98 inches per mile squared. There's no getting around that simple fact. You look on Google Earth, you scroll out and you see a sphere shape. The water conforming to the shape of the sphere being pulled to the center of the Earth via gravity. And it can be measured. So anytime that you see a horizon that's completely at odds with that measurement, then that just destroys their model there and then. It's game over.
I'd just like to add, gravity is not a force. We don't live on a model. And the horizon is a not actual location. That's all.
Yeah, but Nathan, you can think of it as a force, though.
You can think of it as a roast chicken if you want to.
If I didn't want to really work at the really is level.
Not the really is, man. Come on. We don't necessarily have to work at the really is, though.
It is Christmas chocolate.
Let's just contextualize that for the audience. This is George Musa quotes. So George Musa, who writes for Scientific American, or was the editor or something like that, was interviewed by Fight the Flat Earth and said that we don't have to work at the really is level.
Jeez.
I can give the exact quote.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
In full context, it's great. I mean, we can, we do, we must consider Newtonian gravity as a force. That doesn't mean it really is one, but we don't necessarily have to work at the really is level. End quote.
Wow.
This is why we have Chocolate on the show to quote that one phrase verbatim perfectly every time.
Shout out to Fight the Flat Earth.
Oh, shout out retracted, for goodness sakes.
I mean, as it's Christmas, John, I could always find the musical version. I'm messing. I'm trying to plug that tune. But...
Hey, who?
Oh, I like that.
Please send that to John again, yes.
I want the full 17-minute version, please. Can I have the hardcore dance mix remix version? 17 minutes.
Full house, 12 inch.
Who is this young dashing globe killer? I was listening or watching the video right for the first time, and it almost knocked me off my chair when he had you in Dallas. Kudos to you, Ben. Thanks, man.
Thanks.
All right, we ready to rock?
Yeah, that
Super chat.
guys seem to
Oh,
know who
goodness.
was talking about.
Admin super chats.
Go ahead, super chats.
Yeah, we got one from Colin Dresser, and he says, excellent show. At work, back on mood. And Paul Hall has a question. Why does the horizon rise then drop on the globe?
Is that rhetorical?
Why does the horizon rise then drop on the globe?
It doesn't. It's just as Ranty summarised beautifully earlier, it's just the water doing what it does, being flat. It's not that the horizon's being loomed up in front of or behind. I've forgotten how Ben eloquently phrased it, but no, that's not actually happening. The Earth's just not a globe, and water's obviously and observably flat. That's what's actually happening.
Hey,
to defend a super chat, that sounds like they're meaning, actually, observationally, we do see shifting horizon up and down, but on a globe, surely it would just be constantly dropping.
Hey, where's Rakia Gafford at? Is he nesting?
Rakia Gafford, he dropped $100 super chat on this show. I'll have you know.
Did he?
He did, yeah, $99 super chat.
Oh,
thank you. Shout out to Dave
I
Rakia
think that
Gafford.
yeah.
Oh, all right, then keep nesting. All right, we ready to roll?
He's on mute.
Yeah, he's on mute and passed. We ready to roll? Let's roll.
For this first test of mine, my wife was carrying a mirror at the opposite end of a reservoir reflecting the sunlight. From 6.3 miles away, I watched my wife place the mirror into the water. However, under the globe model, my wife should have been entirely obstructed by the curvature with a target hidden height over 12 feet. Obviously, the globe fails. Do you see any visible signs that my wife is a mirage, or that a 12-foot section hopped over the curvature to present a false flat Earth? There is no distortion accounting for this selective imaginary curvature hopping. These clips are from two separate experiments from opposite ends of Utah Lake. The first test was in May, and the second was in freezing conditions in December. In both cases, the spotlight was 7.53 miles away from me, and the camera height was only 2.54 feet above the water. In both cases, my wife's spotlight should have been hidden 21 feet below the horizon. Instead, you can see the spotlight placed at the water or ice edge. There is absolutely no curvature in these tests, and the symmetry of the reflection of lights belies the nonsense curvature hopping refraction claim. I don't show this video much, but this was a test I conducted with my family at the Bonneville Salt Flats. I placed my camera at 2.7 feet and filmed my wife drive away on the salt flats. Even with a mirage, I filmed my wife drive 6.6 miles away. The van should have been entirely hidden with a target hidden height of 14 feet. Unfortunately, this test ended in disaster. My wife got stuck in the middle of nowhere, and I was 6.6 miles away from her and also in the middle of nowhere. The tow bill was $800, and it wasn't covered by roadside assistance. Flat Earth testing does not pay very well, and I learned a valuable lesson about the Bonneville Salt Flats. It can swallow your car.
Great work, Ben. Outstanding.
Let me emphasize again. I don't criticize anyone who gets paid here, but I have never made a penny on anything related to Flat Earth. Never a penny. Not on my website, nothing. And that tow bill alone cost me $800. You think about the cameras, all those things. It costs thousands of dollars. You start adding it all up, and that's just based solely on my dedication to what I believe is the truth. And the truth is that the Earth is flat and stationary.
You rock, man. I would have loved to seen your wife's face when she got stuck.
Ben, I've got an old man question on that one, because those initial cross-water observations, how many years ago was that? Because like Flat Earth, a week can seem like a month or more. Do you know what I mean? How long ago
that should have been March 2016, I think that happened. 16. Yeah.
Kind of having deja vu flashbacks when saw him.
Jibby Jedi's in the chat. He actually he edited that video for me. I didn't know how to do videos back then, and he made that video for me. But he knows that when my wife got stuck, I wasn't very happy, and so he edited all that out, fortunately. But oh, that was sad.
Oh, kudos, mate, because I refer to the age, because back then there wasn't a ranty, there wasn't a multitude of things. There was very sparse information, and certainly observational stuff like that done by flat earthers was very rare. And like I said, I kept getting flat. I wondered how long ago it was, because it's quality work, mate, that when we're all on this journey, like I said, those sorts of things, people going out and doing them, and as Randy will say, the dedication's hard work to get those things was rare, to confirm what we were suspecting then. Do you know what I mean? But to actually see it done, it was a very rewarding thing.
I didn't really consider myself a flat earther until I saw my wife carrying that mirror across that reservoir when she should have been hidden by 12 feet, and I watched her put it right in the water. And I'm actually very thankful that it was on a day that was clear and the conditions were right, that you could see, there wasn't that haze and the miraging that very often accompany these observations. And I was just fortunate that first test I did, and there was my wife, and that was impossible on the globe. And that's when it's like, oh my goodness, wow, I've been lied to. That changed everything for me.
You're a pioneer, Ben.
So
that was one of the first. Yeah, there he goes. You're a pioneer, Ben, as I was saying.
I'm on mute.
Oh God.
I'm on mute as well.
I'm on mute.
As I was, there he goes again.
Wasn't a point. I love you, John. That's why I do it. Go ahead, man.
Happy Christmas, Kiwi.
We're going to move on. Ben, you're a pioneer, man. I remember watching those videos when they first come out, right? I love seeing them again. But we're going to move on so they don't overtalk me anymore.
Can I just say, Ben, I know the trials and tribulations. The very first day that I went out with the P900 when I met Tony and did an observation up there, I walked a quarter of a mile out across the sands and ended up in quicksand up to my knees. I may never have come back out. It was my first time out there, and I filmed the struggles back as I'm walking in knee-deep quicksand.
I think we'll get to
valuable lesson.
We'll get to the loss of Ben's minivan and the tow truck and all that later, I think.
And we're so lucky to have you back, Ranty.
The Globers might disagree.
All right, let's roll.
Let's go.
Observable Reality has obtained some amazing footage of our flat Earth and is known for getting his camera very low. In this case, his camera was only 0.6 feet off of the water, and he filmed a dam 7.7 miles away. The dam is only 14 feet high. Under the globe Earth's dimensions, 30 feet should be hidden. Obviously, the dam is visible, and the globe fails again to simple and repeatable experimentation that you can do yourself. Notice also that the Bridge Peninsula on the right was only 3.3 miles away from the camera, but the globe horizon was supposed to be 0.95 miles away. The horizon is well beyond 3.3 miles, again proving the globe false. The next two experiments were conducted by Flat Earth Reality Explorers in California. The mirror was 13.8 miles away from the camera, which was at a height of 5 feet. Under the globe model, 82 feet should have been hidden below the horizon. Obviously, nothing is missing behind a purported curvature. Sunlight reflection off a mirror at 13.8 miles should not wrap around a ball. But this is my all-time favorite test conducted by Flat Earth Reality Explorers. This mirror flash experiment was conducted at the Salton Sea at opposite sides at a whopping distance of 18 miles. As you can see here, they were able to see and film the reflection of the mirror that was 18 miles away from the camera. 155 feet should have been hidden. Under the globe model, you'd have to be standing on this 150-foot minaret to see a mirror flash at a distance of 18 miles. That experiment absolutely destroys the globe myth and should cause any thinking independent person to conduct their own investigation.
Quick comments, questions?
You know, that group, the Flat Earth researcher group there in California, they've actually gotten much further now, and so all that will have to be updated. I can't disclose too much, but saying they've gotten further is just crazy. Anyway, it's just amazing the amount of proof and evidence that we're collecting.
Outstanding.
Anyone else? Any other comments? I thought Ranty would have something to say there.
I was with you on that, Nath. I was going to say that last clip, that interference layering over the reflection, was kind of what Ranty's highlighted as well with stuff recently. I thought was.
I actually missed it. Yeah.
Well, in that case, I'll just lead you with something else. So the distance is talking about 18 miles and essentially getting shore-to-shore observations. That's not something unfamiliar to you, correct, Ranty?
Yeah.
Enough.
Yeah, we can see those distances regularly. It's not a problem on a flat plane. I'm sorry, like I say, I missed it. I actually missed the clip.
No, that's all you needed. That's perfect, Ranty. The Earth is obviously unobservably flat. Seeing these great distances is no surprise. It's flat.
Yeah. Indeed. And
I was going to say, go ahead, Arvin. You haven't spoken.
Yeah, I'm back. I was making dinner. Sorry for being absent. But yeah, how about all that baller progress to prove their curvature in the last 4 years?
You just took it from me, man. Like, I was just going to say that. When I was watching Ben's video, it just reminded me of all the observations and the things that flat earthers are out there doing to try to, to look for this globe. And I remember thinking, like, where are all the globers that are supposed to be doing this? Because, like Ben said before, if it was a ball, these measurements would have been done, and not just done, but continuously be done today. We'd be doing this all the time. It would be a thing, kids would be taken out on field trips. Oh, let's go measure the curvature of the Earth today because it exists, right? But they never do that because it doesn't exist. They just tell us about it in a textbook, throw a few numbers up there, and say, "Hey, yeah, it's a ball. Great." It's ridiculous. This should be happening all the time, and it's not. Mirror reflections from 18 miles away. That's crazy. Come on. So
it should be one crew against another, one camera crew and then against another, but instead it's one filming, photographing crew of individuals doing their own thing, completely independent, uncoordinated with others, just doing experiments on their own, non-scientific experiments. And the ballers are just forwarding their machinations. That's what they do. They haven't actually done a lot of field work. I haven't seen any supposed progress in their curvature proving field work since, what's that guy's name again? With the bridge? Soundly, right? Well, that was like the last sign of any kind of fantastic glimmer of hope for an actual curvature observation, pretty much.
Well, there was that National Geographic where, they said that 1.5
well, that preceded it. That was first. That was even earlier. Right.
There's a reason that, to answer Chocolate, there's a reason why there's been no progress, because between people like Ben and Ranty, the perspective hijacking curve calculator has been exposed as the only mechanism of taking the effective objects getting smaller and smaller and then disappearing, surprisingly, at the most limited angle, that being the bottom of things first, and calling that effect, otherwise known as perspective, Earth curvature. And the way you hijack it is to run it through the curve calculator and remove all aspects of perspective, put it in a side elevation, so you're not seeing what you see with your eyes, you're seeing your own head side on and the target, which won't change in angular size when you move the scale up. So if you draw on a page a target on the right hand side of the page and an observer on the left hand side of the page, and you draw a line between them and you write 1 mile on that line, well, and the man is 6 foot and the target's 6 foot, well, it doesn't matter if you change that scale to 1 million rather than 1 mile, you can still see both of them with a line drawn between them because the effects of perspective have been completely removed. Now, to assert that what you're seeing in regards to actual perspective is Earth curve, you've got to run it through those numbers and assume the Earth is a sphere to begin with, i.e. run it through the Earth curve calculator. Clue is in the title, it's begging the question, it's automatically assuming Earth is a spherical body, and the effects that you see when things get smaller and disappear is actually the effect of the Earth curving away from you at 8 inches per mile squared. And that hijacking was robbed by Ranty pointing out the hijacking for us and Ben and many other people who've done similar things. You know, for Ranty, it was showing the wind turbine side on and going, look, in the front elevation, in the picture, they look like they're cascading away from you, and they call that Earth curve. But you look side on, and they're perfectly flat. They're perfectly level. It's merely the effect of perspective. The ones further away from you are smaller, obviously. That's not them going over a curve. It's the effect of perspective.
Yeah, they put it. They put it in Muppet vision.
Yeah, Muppet vision, because you see the side of your own head. But the technical term is orthographic view. But the orthographic view removes all aspects of perspective, and they also do it with the numbering system they use. So a 6 foot wall is a 6 foot wall if it's a mile away or a million miles away. It's always a 6 foot wall. But in reality, the angular resolution of that you see is it will reach and breach a point where you can't see it anymore. So yeah, it's a 6 foot wall, but that number won't change with distance. The angular size, on the other hand, the not actual size, will decrease at distance until it gets too small to see. Now, at the point that a 6 foot wall is too small to see, it doesn't mean that you can't build a skyscraper on top of that 6 foot wall and see it. But the 6 foot wall at the bottom or the base of the skyscraper is completely gone because it's too small to see. The bottom of anything you see in the distance is the most limited angle, and it's angular resolution that you're dealing with when you look at things in the distance. They remove that with, as Quantum Eraser points out, Muppet vision, orthographic view, and keep everything in whole numbers. A 6 foot wall is always a 6 foot wall. So back in 2015, we were asked, why can't you see New York from England? Well, because it's too small. But in their calculations, it should be seen if you're a flat earther, because their calculations exclude perspective. So therefore, well, there you go. I draw a line between England on this depiction and New York. There's a line between them. I should be able to see it. No, you shouldn't. It's too small. That's ignored and called curvature. Oh, you only can't see it because Earth's got in the way. No, that's just a hijacking, hence the perspective hijacking curve calculator.
Well, moving on from that, the curve calculator itself has gone through a few different changes recently. The most recent one, and I don't know whether Ben's aware of this, but I actually got a chance to confront Mick West on a hangout. So he was in somebody else's hangout, and I managed to get in on the panel and jumped in and confronted him about why he included this caveat, this note, not accurate for observations over water very close to the horizon. And his response was a tip of the hat to you there, Ben, because he said that the reason that he put that in was because he couldn't explain the mirror flash observations over water.
That's great.
Nice.
There you go.
Mick.
Oh, I don't even cite that scumbag. He's a total freaking sellout. You know, he's a 9/11. 9/11 truthers are idiots, and anyone who does that, he's a paid deceiver, and I have no respect for him. I don't even show his website ever on my channel because he's a scumbag liar. And you can quote me there, Mick. You're a scumbag liar.
Yeah, we just had him on BallBusters. He was an honorary BallBuster a couple weeks ago, man. Yeah. Mick, there's a fever in the Funkcast now. All right, let's roll, man.
This next laser test was conducted in Italy by Romanians. The distance was 9.4 miles, the laser height was 6.6 feet, and the camera height was 2 feet off of the water. 39 feet should be hidden behind the curvature, but the camera filmed the source of the laser at 6.6 feet above the water in defiance of the globe. This next test is from D. Marble. In this case, the person holding the laser was at 7 feet, shooting the laser at a distance of 10 miles. At 10 miles under the globe model, the observer would have to be at a height of 30 feet in order to see the laser source. Instead, you can see the source of the laser at just inches above the water. For this test, Dr. John D., who has a PhD, confirmed with the laser that over a distance of 9.5 miles, there's absolutely no curvature. 39 feet should have been hidden under the globe model. Nothing was hidden.
Dr.
I don't know
John D.
Yeah, is he still with us? I haven't heard him.
Yes. Yeah, I'm still with you. Yep.
Okay,
That was.
Wait, would you mind just taking some time and going through some of the experiments and things that you have done to measure the alleged curvature of the Earth?
Well, most of them was just with the telescope. When I just started to try and prove flat Earth wrong, I got the telescope and just like drove along, like the coast and looked at landmarks. We got lots of landmarks, right along the coast, with lights on at night. And I was just like looking at these landmarks, these lights at night. So I hadn't done like the calculations. I just went out there to start with like the telescope and was just watching, basically just looking down the coast, getting used to, like the weather, because that makes such a huge difference. And then once I'd learned how to join, the camera, like to the scope, and then took some pictures, it was then I started to do the calculations, and the calculations weren't working. I was seeing things that I shouldn't have been seeing. So it's kind of, so it wasn't planned yet to start with. I didn't plan the whole thing. My first thing was, just to take out the telescope and just watch and see and learn how like the weather worked and things like that. Then it was eventually, once I saw a few flat Earth videos, I realized you could do like the calculation, and I started to do the calculations, and I was, there was no curve. I've got this one view down the coast that's my sanity shot, and I'm seeing, like 100 meters that I shouldn't be like seeing, and that's my sanity shot. On a good clear night, that's what I see. I see this set of lights along the coast that you just should not be seeing. So, and then of course we got groups of people to do the laser, do like the laser tests, and our classic one was between Worthing Pier and Brighton Pier. Everyone had been, like invited to come down and join us. Simon Dan, Mick West, but no one joined us. So like we just did it. It was really funny because we'd planned it for Friday night, but potentially like Saturday night. Friday night was complete fog. It was completely thick with fog. Couldn't see a thing. So like Saturday morning, it was starting to clear, and then Saturday night was perfect. It was just the most perfect night you could want. Low tide, completely clear, no wind. It was just perfect. And we had the laser at our lowest point. It was just like sat on the rocks just above that water level. So the laser was down, I'd say, at roughly like 10 centimeters, and like the other camera was roughly half a meter, and it was just perfect.
Would you mind also commenting on the idea of that refraction's bringing up these objects from behind the curvature to present a false flat Earth?
I've never seen that. I've never seen these looming hyenas that people talk about. Like, I've never seen it along the coast.
I think I need to bring some clarity. I'm really sorry. So when you say fog, what you actually mean is Earth curve. And when you say perfect conditions, what you actually mean is very high likelihood of slightly looming non-standard refraction, high inner holographic projections of reified objects from behind an Earth curve. That's actually the horizon.
Flattening optics.
Yeah, that's what some people say, but I've never spotted that myself. We've never spotted that.
But you did. I hate to do this to you.
Oh, well, fair
I'm
enough.
also quite smiling while I'm doing it, so I'm going to do it anyway. So when you said stuff that we shouldn't see, well, no, you are seeing it, but your eyes definitely aren't deceiving you. You can see it. But when you say what we shouldn't see, well, that's like a throwback to the indoctrination, without being rude. You're automatically assuming what I can or can't see if Earth is a sphere. But the phraseology, I know it's not intentional on your part, is to say, I'm seeing stuff that I shouldn't see. Well, why shouldn't you see it? Well, because we're designed and programmed to automatically assume Earth's a sphere. So when we see something, we say, oh, I shouldn't be seeing that. Whoa, hold the phone. According to what? What says that you shouldn't be seeing that now? Oh, the Earth curve calculator says you shouldn't see it. No. You are seeing it. End of conversation. What the Earth curve calculator says you shouldn't see. Oh, I don't care.
Exactly.
Yeah. But
Quickly get your calculator out to make more machinations to account for the failure.
Yeah, but what's strange is people that live along, like the coast, just take for granted things they see every single day, and they just don't realize that, yep, that's normal. And it's lots of people, that live along, like the South Coast, we speak to them and they go, oh, yeah, we can see that. And they don't realize, but according to the globe model, you shouldn't be able to see that. I think people...
Well qualified.
Yeah, I think people think the globe is, or the globe model is much larger than they realize.
Well, that's something that Anthony encountered. I don't know if he pipes up, but I'll give the rendition even if it doesn't. So when he was looking at the Isle of Man, he explained to me that he'd explained to the guy at the caravan site he was at that you shouldn't be seeing. And he immediately gave a globe Earth justification. Oh, no, it's this, that, and the other sphere explanation, akin to the guy with the kid earlier on when it's the rockets. Oh, it's got a justification, it's sphere justification, blah, blah, blah. Go ahead, Anthony, sorry.
It's not just Isle of Man, it was when me and Ranty did the Hoy Lake observation of Blackpool Tower. Nobody where we were thought you could see Blackpool Tower on a clear day because it was behind the Earth curve. Yet we could see it. And it's like, oh my, when you realise that the common everyday Joe Blogs naturally puts it down to the Earth curve, that's when you start thinking, right, so these guys have got the local perception that it's either you can see it or you can't see it. It depends on whether they beg the question and think we're on a globe, or whether or not you can actually see it because they know you can see it. If they've never seen it before, they'll say it's because we're on a globe. But if they know they can see it because they've seen it before, they'll say, oh yeah, it's just because it's not that far, or the globe's bigger than what it actually is. But when you actually go there and test it yourself, you'll see that one of the two positions is true. Either you can see it because the Earth, they've got this perception that the Earth's huge, or you can't see it because it's fallen behind the Earth curve. And I always ask questions local people when I'm out testing stuff, because it's interesting to see what can and can't be seen. And you can just see the cogs turning when you say, do you realise that you shouldn't be able to see that if we live on a sphere? Or do you realise that we can see that, but we shouldn't see it because we're on a sphere? And they start thinking, and they look at you like you've got two heads, and you go off and do your thing, they go off and do their thing, and probably don't even give it another thought. But I noticed it with Ranty the first time we did the Hoy Lake to Blackpool Tower observation.
If I may add something for a moment about it's Photoshop because it has to be. Look, the Photoshop concern in that case is not specifically about people mutilating images, inserting things. No, it's about the attaching of the actual photographic original materials. And why would that be? That's sometimes overlooked. Like, why would they have to really Photoshop? Could it be because whatever they're using for making actual photographs could not ascend far enough to take a singular shot? Could that be the reason why it had to be Photoshop?
There's something else though. When he says that one of the key phrases I think to me, and when he says that famous quote, is that he says he had to make it look like how he had to try to match people's expectations of what the globe looks like. Right.
That
So
too. Yeah.
Right. So you're going by expectations and imagination, and not actually what is the data that you're trying to share. Like it's nonsense. It makes no sense. That's why he's photoshopping it, because he's people's expectations. Like it's so good that he says that.
Yeah, you guys are
Hilarious.
anticipating that's coming up.
Yeah. Good.
Is that a cue to move on? Should we go on next clip?
Yes.
One of the common objections I hear is that all of these tests were conducted over water. Well, duh, water is flat and you don't have ground obstructions. But the next two tests by Grota 1 were conducted over ice. In this first test, Grota 1 drove a snowmobile 7.5 miles while he maintained a visual with the distant laser. Here's the laser from 7.5 miles away. This is over frozen, solid ice. Based on an adjusted laser height of 2.4 feet, over 21 feet should have been hidden. Instead, Grota 1 filmed the laser hitting his hand and on the ice at his feet. Here he is filming the source of the laser with his camera only 10 inches off of the ice. In this next test, Grota 1 sets a camera on the frozen lake at a height of 8 inches and then drove 7.4 miles away, where he placed a mirror down on the frozen lake at a height of 14 inches. He didn't zoom in so that he could maintain the clock in view and synchronize the mirror. Based on the 8-inch observation height of the camera, 25 feet should have been hidden below the horizon, and you can see the tiny mirror flash at only a height of 14 inches. Regardless of the conditions, the globe math fails repeatedly. There are dozens of globe-defying photographs on the Beyond Horizons website. Here's the record photograph of Pic Gaspard at a distance of 275 miles or 443 kilometers. According to the globe model, with an observation height of 9,272 feet, the very top of Pic Gaspard at 12,730 feet should have been hidden 3,772 feet below the horizon. That's the top. Here's another one. This photograph was taken at a distance of 254 miles at an elevation of 9,354 feet on top of Neufons. He photographed Tête de l'Estrade at sunrise. The peak has an elevation of 9,715 feet. Under the globe math, 12,160 feet should have been hidden. Therefore, the top of the distant peak should have been 2,445 feet below the horizon.
Quick comments?
That's a lot of looming.
Yeah, I just want to point out that the Beyond Horizons website is no longer there. I'm guessing they shut it down. I don't know why they did or whatever, but I don't know how they did it. But the Globe Propaganda somehow shut that website down, and it's sad to me because I really, really love that website. Irregardless of the debate, I love the idea of people trying to break records, doing these things, trying to get these long distance photographs, but now you can't even share them on that website. So that's sad to me.
When did they shut that down?
It looks like a couple weeks ago.
Really? Wow, I didn't know that.
And it's not like they weren't getting traffic either. That place was very popular.
Yeah, maybe that's the problem.
Yeah.
In this for this topic, something like that becoming popular or getting more popular is dangerous. So.
Right, especially the sudden momentums. The algorithms and the controllers, the ones in control of the media, especially stifle that. They mostly leave us to our devices, but when there's suddenly this big momentum out of nowhere, especially with newcomers, they really tend to stifle it then to prevent getting traction.
Can we avoid too much speculation on this because nobody knows the reason, right?
Yep. Let's roll, man.
But this next photograph may dominate them all. This photograph was allegedly taken at a distance of 326 miles by YouTuber Nouvelle Géographie Planetaire. In this case, he photographed a lighthouse at 85 feet above the water. Under the globe math, 43,848 feet should have been hidden. I just asked him the other day if he's certain that he filmed the lighthouse. He said he's very certain, but he'll get more evidence supporting the fact. There are hundreds of more observations and experiments. Just look at the distance of this ship in this clip from Finland by Velo 42. If you look closely, there's a huge ship that's further away and barely visible. The entire boat in the front should be hidden, and yet you can see the horizon beyond the boat. A huge impossibility for the globe. Look at this photograph of this lighthouse, also in Finland. 76 feet should be hidden, and none of it is. Without question, we see too far. The globe math doesn't hold up at all. Probably the main objection to the flat Earth is that NASA and other so-called space agencies have supposedly taken photos of Earth from space. If you have enough sense to realize that this was not a spaceship, that these actors did indeed hang from wires, and that this was not filmed on the moon, but on a Hollywood set in front of 1960s movie backdrops, then you already know that the Apollo pictures of the Earth from space are phony. Regardless, this is supposedly the last photograph from the Apollo missions taken in December 1972. When you look closely, you can tell it's a painting. I do want to thank Math Powerland for exposing NASA's use of hyper-realist space art. In this NASA article, NASA admitted that no photographs were taken of the Earth from space from 1972 until 2015, and that this 2002 blue marble image that you're looking at was created by NASA employee Robert Simon. Yes, this image is an admitted phony creation from Robert Simon. We gotta love Robert Simon, who brought us this gem.
It is photoshopped, but it's has to be.
As Simon stated in this NASA article, then we wrapped the flat map around a ball. My part was integrating the surface clouds and oceans to match people's expectations of how Earth looks from space. That ball became the famous blue marble. So, a NASA employee created a propaganda image of a fake globe to match what you think it looks like using a flat map and computer graphics that looks just as real as any other images from NASA. Be sure to note that a flat map is accurate enough for NASA. But here's the first alleged photograph of the Earth from space in 43 years, taken supposedly in July 2015. When you look closely, you can see what appears to be the word sex spelled in the clouds. At least that's what I thought just a month ago. But now I think it's more sinister. In Revelation 13 verse 18, we're introduced to the mark of the beast, and its number is 666. Here are various Greek translations of 666. It looks like the word sex upside down. Now compare the Greek 666 to the alleged July 2015 NASA photographs. The first photograph in 43 years has either the word sex or a Greek 666 in the clouds. Evil Satan worshippers or perverts at NASA, you decide, but either way, it's damning to NASA.
Comments?
I've been accused of cherry picking before, but this isn't cherry picking. This is the first alleged photograph of the Earth from space in some 43 years, and it just so happens to have the word sex or 666 spelled in the clouds. I mean, come on, that's impossible. Sorry.
It's a fairly commonly known thing as well. If you've ever looked into subliminal messaging, that's a commonly used practice in artwork and posters for movies. You know, you stick a sex in the clouds or in the smoke or in hair there's a whole number of things that you can do it in. And it's just to grab your attention at a subliminal level. Most people won't see it, but you'll see sex and it does register. It's what is it called? Death and sex cell. That's the one. So the two things that work at your most base levels are death, scary masks, scary faces, and sex. And they work at a much more primitive level. What's the word? Subliminally.
I've got a good one for you, Ben. The first ever 360 spacewalk that was conducted. If you look in the footage of that, in the visor of the astronaut is reflected the number 22. So I decided to have a look around and find out what number 22 came up with. So in the tarot numbers for 22, it can mean one of two words. Either one, which is fool, and the other one, which is world. So to fool the world.
Oh, really?
Yep.
You'll have to send me more information on that.
I've got it I've got it on my channel. If you look at my oldest videos first, it's the 5th one that I did. It's RT360 Space Work Busted, fake news as bad as NASA, and you do actually see the reflection number 22 in the visor.
However, as fun as the numerology debunkings are, it's taking place where again? Where was these pictures taken from again? Was it space? The sky vacuum? So this stuff can easily be debunked without pulling apart the sex in the clouds. Again, I'm not trying to put down anybody who does this. No, I'm not trying to put down anybody
The
who does
pictures
this.
were not taken from space. They were taken from as high as they could get. And then they had to stitch it together to make it look like a globe.
It has to be taken from space to get those views.
Exactly.
Now maybe the claim has to be made about it being made
Yeah,
from
that's what we're
space.
debunking. That's my point, Alwyn. It's claimed to be taken from space. You're saying, oh, well, then what they've actually got is from the high altitude. No, that's not what I mean. They're claiming it's a picture of Earth from space. End of claim, because space is fake. Second law of thermodynamics violation. The gas we breathe would fill the space. So therefore, you don't necessarily, obviously, most people who are watching this will go, yeah, I see the sex. And it's more interesting at a different level to how they're lying and why they're lying and the bits that they put in the lies. But ultimately speaking, the picture itself can be debunked instantaneously. Where'd you say the picture was taken from? Space? No, the gas we're breathing, that debunks the notion that we have a sky vacuum. We don't. Therefore, this picture is fake.
There's a comment in the chat saying that 0 is the full number in tarot and 21 is the world card. So there might be some disputing on that.
Yeah, that might be true, but the actual number 22, which is a master number in the tarot, it's fool and world. It's the two. Yeah.
Yeah, but hey, look, I know a little bit about cardling. I happen to just have.
No, we're not going to go down there. Sorry.
Very simplistic. Look,
no.
The cards, the numbers are not about individual meanings. They're about context in relation to other numbers. That's what it's really about. So to just claim a singular number has some singular archetype meaning is already kind of wrong, because it's all about the context in the relations.
Okay,
very interesting.
Thank you very much.
Let's continue.
Yes, please. Please, God, yes.
What about satellites? Why are space satellites even necessary when NASA and its subsidiaries have hundreds and possibly thousands of these so-called space balloons? Look at this crash one from Samsung. They called it a space selfie, even though it was attached to a balloon. Here's a list from NASA of hundreds of satellite balloons launched by NASA. Notice that a handful of them were identified as Mir components. There's your Russian Mir space station. Until a few years ago, when Flat Earth exploded, no one spoke of these satellite balloons. This balloon supposedly went into orbit. Most people I talk to even now about this have never seen these satellite balloons. Now we know what Roswell was. For decades, there has been a deliberate whitewash of these balloon satellites, evincing that they are lying about space satellites. Space satellites aren't necessary when you can accomplish the same with these much cheaper balloon satellites. These high-altitude balloons can carry 8,000 pounds and include telescopes, radar equipment, communications equipment, internet, etc. There's a GoFundMe project. Start the first space hotel held up by weather balloons. This 2-ton balloon satellite, yes, they did call it a satellite, almost killed onlookers. It had cutting-edge NASA telescopes on board. Have you ever heard of a telescope mounted on a high-altitude balloon? I hadn't. Where are the images from these balloon telescopes? Moreover, it is hardly ever mentioned that almost all of our alleged communications come from undersea cables and cell towers, not supposed satellites in space, and the rest of those are held by balloons. Finally, look at these actual NASA videos of space satellites. They are manifestly fake. Look at this one that was launched during a space shuttle mission. It's dangling from a wire. Don't be a moron. That video alone proves they are faking space.
Don't be a moron. I love that line. Way to go, Ben. Questions, comments?
Just a big shout out to Robert Bassano, because he was the first one that exposed this to me. You replayed that show. Balloons, people. Balloons.
Yeah. That was off of Roberts. Yeah.
Yeah, where's the big Zeppelin space station? You know? If you want some kind of thing keeping floating up there that could potentially man people, then it's going to have to be some kind of Zeppelin design.
Do you know who took the piss out of this? Simpsons. So they had I can't remember what the name of the TV station, like NBC or something like that. Who does Simpsons go out with? What network is it? Fox. That's it. They're the Fox satellite in one of the Simpsons cartoons,
PBS.
literally dangling from balloons with bits hanging off it.
What? Really?
Yeah, there's truth in plain sight. Simpsons is all about that. So they had literally the Fox satellite on balloons. They're just shoving it right in your face.
Yeah.
Oh, I need to see that one.
No, I haven't heard of that.
I'll dig out the thumbnail. I've got it somewhere stashed on this iPad that I'm on this call with, so I'll go on mute and I'll see if I can find it still.
It's great.
All right, ready to continue?
Yep.
The Antarctic Treaty is one of the biggest proofs that they are hiding something huge about our plane from we the people. This is a fact that you can look up yourself. Independent travel is not allowed below the 60th south parallel. The Antarctic Treaty, its handbook, and its enforcement protocols, which have remained inviolate for 60 years and include signatories like the United States, North Korea, China, and the former Soviet Union, and now Russia, essentially ban any reasonable attempt to explore below the 60th south parallel under the guise of protecting the environment. They may allow limited excursions to a few tourist points, but independent travel is not allowed, and that's shocking. Think of what has happened in the last 60 years. The Antarctic Treaty survived Vietnam and all of the Cold War, despite the claim that Antarctica is rich in minerals, including coal, oil, and uranium. Were the Soviets really interested in protecting penguins and the environment? It's ludicrous. Antarctica is the one place that would prove the flat Earth, and it just so happens that independent travel isn't allowed below the 60th south parallel. And all major nations agreed to this one principle of keeping you out. Are you now starting to see that international relations aren't what we were told?
Yeah, I wanted to stop it here, Ben. Your legwork in this area is unparalleled. That video that you did on this was so in-depth. It's going to stop people from making generalized, baseless assertions about, how to get to Antarctica. If you haven't watched his video, Ben's video, the detailed video on this, you're wrong. You need to go check this out. It's absolutely ridiculous. Comments, questions?
I did mention that also to the Romanians when I was there in Romania doing the presentation. And, they understood. The Soviet Union had no care about anything, especially the environment. And the idea that they would shut off exploration and their ability to extract coal, oil, and uranium, that is just absolute. The story is nonsense. They are absolutely 100% hiding something from us with respect to Antarctica. I mean, for we flat earthers, it's obvious what they're hiding. But I mean, everybody has to agree to that they are hiding something, because all the nations in the world don't join together in unison for 60 years supporting this one idea of keeping you out of a certain area unless there's a reason to do so. And it's not the environment.
I'm actually working on a video where I will be linking that particular video in because it will be needed. It's an absolutely fantastic video. If you ever get a chance to go and watch it, just watch it, because it will tell you how difficult it is to actually go and explore. You're not allowed to go beyond 60 degrees south latitude. It's a destination that we're not allowed to go in. It's as simple as that. If anyone thinks that they can just hop in a boat and go and explore, you're sadly mistaken.
Ben, was that one of the videos?
And is it just
hold on, Ben? Was that one of the videos that you linked to this presentation in the info box?
No, I don't think I did.
Okay, thank you.
And I was just going to add, and it's just coincidence. I'm not saying Gleason's 100% right or anything like that, or the AE map's right. It doesn't matter to me that much. But the idea is that we flat earthers since the 1800s were saying that Antarctica was the shoreline of the world's oceans. And it just so happens then that same area is now blocked off to independent travel. Coincidence? Come on.
Yeah, and it's interesting that 60 degrees south latitude is apparently 1,000 miles away from Antarctica.
And we're not saying
1,000 miles to save the environment. I mean, you can't even take a boat to circumnavigate Antarctica because you can't keep Antarctica within view. It's too far to hardly even see it.
So how was this latitude degree specifically determined? What made them decide upon this distance?
I don't know. I saw it on Happy Feet where they showed all the all the boats being pushed out from to the 60th South parallel, which is actually pretty funny by itself.
It's just the Antarctic Treaty. It's the treaty they all signed after the failed expedition to go and claim that land back in the 1950s.
Yeah.
When Admiral Byrd went down there, Operation High Jump.
And the liars will come out and say, "Oh, the Antarctic Treaty doesn't say that." They're lying. What it is that the enforcement protocols. You can look them all up online. I put in the links in the original video. I don't have them anymore since my channel was deleted. But they're the enforcement protocols that are enforce the Antarctic Treaty, not the Antarctic Treaty itself, which seems rather benign when you read it. It's the protocols that are also agreed to when someone becomes a signatory to the Antarctic Treaty.
I like the steps. You went through the steps to apply to do it. And there was so much red tape. I mean, I was in the military, used to red tape, but that's a microcosm. It was in another galaxy. The step-by-step way you went about it, it was absolutely preposterous. It was like stamp on your forehead. You ain't doing this. They're going to stop you at every step. How much? I forget the cash amount that was attached to that. Do you remember that, Ben?
Yeah, well, an environmental impact statement, that's a typical statement that most engineers, civil engineers would understand. The average cost is around $2 million for an environmental impact statement. This one, you have to get an environmental impact statement for an area you have never been to, and you can't go there to go get one. So how in the world can you possibly do that? You would have to hire experts from Antarctica who've been there, which, I mean, for looking as a legal standpoint, the idea of trying to get there legally, next to impossible. And it's obvious, they'll say, oh, but they'll need a huge fleet of boats to protect it. No, they don't have radar. But I also shared the link there at the very end that shows that they even published that the UK has their Antarctic Treaty Patrol. I mean, they even have a webpage, the Antarctic Treaty Patrol. We're kind of, yes, they are keeping you out.
And we're not saying that there's not scheduled tours there. We're not saying that. There obviously is. They have designated areas down there that don't appeal to that knucklehead red herring fallacy place.
Yeah, I agree. That one they always say, oh, you can go up there and book a tour right now. But I will say, I'll concede that note. But I actually doubt that because I have actually tried to book a tour there. And when I went to pay for it, I couldn't. Their website would not take my credit card. And I just thought that was fascinating that a website dedicated to people using the internet to book a tour to go to Antarctica, the processing failed. I'm sorry, but your business will be defunct in no time doing that. Yeah. So I have my doubts of how much tourism actually exists over there.
And I just want to say that I don't know whether it's keeping us out or whether it's actually just keeping us in. I mean, the video that I'm working on.
Good point.
The video I'm working on right now is about the fact that we are kept in. If you think of this 60 degrees south latitude as a ring, a fence, we're inside that fence. We are inside a pen. It's a prison for our body, and we have a prison for our mind, which is the education system, and taking away all our thoughts and putting things in our heads that we don't even need. So we are penned in physically and penned in mentally.
Well, it's like a fence. They're basically fending us off from exploring further south.
Yeah, we are inside a pen.
All right, we ready to continue? Any admin?
Yep, no super chat, sorry.
Okay, let's roll.
Yeah, one more. Sorry, one
Oh,
more
I'm sorry.
that we missed. Yeah, it was from Brian's Logic. He says, without the proof of curvature and drop, then the equator line should be in a number 38,998 0.98 miles in circumference, as 24,935 miles of an equator is impossible. I'm bad at numbers, sorry.
You're forgiven. Thanks, Brian, for the super chat. Let's roll.
This video by Flat Earth LT shows some unbelievable infrared footage taken over Eastern Europe. At that altitude, the horizon should have been only 220 miles away. It appears as though Flat Earth LT was able to film across the Black Sea over a distance of 887 miles with a curvature hump that would be so substantial as to hide an object 56 miles tall. More importantly, there's absolutely no curvature present, and the horizon is at least 668 miles further than it should be. Watch the video though, because it looks like they even filmed the other side of the Caspian Sea that would have been roughly 1,500 miles away. Amazing. We already understand that the curvature of the Earth should drop away at 8 inches per mile squared, and the same should roughly apply to airplanes. At 500 miles per hour in 15 minutes, a pilot would have to make a curvature correction in the amount of roughly 10,400 feet. Pilots don't have to dip the nose of the airplane to correct for the curvature regardless of the speed or altitude of the airplane. Globe supporters will claim that it's gravity that is pulling the nose of the airplane down. The airplane is defying the alleged force of gravity, and yet gravity selectively grabs the nose of the airplane, not the whole airplane, but just the nose, to keep the plane level with the ground regardless of the speed or altitude of the airplane. Just like magical refraction, that's some wizard selective gravity you have there.
Great point, Ben. Yeah, I've been all over that for some years now. Comments, questions?
Yeah, it's aerodynamics.
Aerodynamics. Yeah, it's a blatant contradiction. We had a guy on who claimed to be a pilot, whether or not he was or wasn't, but it involves double speaking your way around, nosing up and nosing down at the same time. So they'll use a star reference to say that they're nosing down, whilst their altimeter is saying they're nosing up. It's just as simple as that. And minor point, but your phraseology, if you just, for future reference, say dropping rather than nosing down. Obviously, in the qualification that comes after nosing down, obviously makes sense when you're describing what they actually do, because they actually nose up. But in reality, they've got to scrub off the drop, right? Doesn't matter if they nose down necessarily, but they've got to scrub off that altitude if they're going around a surface that's dropping away from them. And then they've got to scrub that off. And you'd notice it, right? If you're in a plane and you're dropping in altitude, you know about it. And planes don't drop in altitude. You fly across the flat plane. That's all you ever experience. And as the list of images that you just put up show, that's what you see. You see the flat plane you're flying over, and you're not dropping in any altitude as you go over any curve.
Let's not forget, he was pitching up while nosing down while flying level to gravity. All at the same time.
That's the point I want to make, Chocolate. There is a distinction there, and the consequence of traveling over a ball primarily is coping with the increase in altitude you get by flying in a straight, what would be considered a straight vector perpendicular to the start point where you're flying. Now that's one thing, and you can maintain that, and you can pitch and your whatever to adjust the altitude so that along the flight you'll stay the same height above the ball. But the other consequence is that the relative change in the direction of gravity as you do move along this ball. Unfortunately, because the ball's falling away from you, the angle of gravity changes at a rate of 0.009 degrees per kilometre. So for every kilometre you go, they're starting to feel leaning back. Now, that would significantly affect the aerodynamics of the plane eventually. But more importantly, the plane would be pitching. So there are the two factors you would, in my opinion, have to nose down, not to negate for altitude, but to negate for if you're flying in a straight line from the point of origin, to negate for the relative adjustment for the direction of gravity if you were on a ball.
Right.
Yeah, this is complete bollocks.
I didn't say it wasn't, John. It's presuppositional. But again, it's that geeky look at, well, this is your argument. And if you're saying this happens, well, this also happens, but you don't adjust for that. as Taboo said in the
forget a
video,
plane
it's
going 500 miles per hour, Adam. What about the planes like the Concorde that were doing London to New York flights in like 2 hours? How much is that plane accounting for curvature and gravity and all this nonsense while people are on the plane having dinner with their wine glasses out and everybody's chilling? I mean, come on.
Well, it's even worse than that if you think about it. Some of the military have to do train within the military jets to fly at just 20 or 30 feet above the actual ocean, and they fly very low, very fast. And there's plenty of videos out there that show them doing this. Now, at the speeds that they're traveling, at such a low, any kind of earth curve, they would have to be maintaining that distance 20 or 30 feet above the water. It would almost be unflyable at the speeds they would be traveling.
Be like they're waving constantly up and down slightly because they'd effectively be pushed off if they were that close a proximity to the water flying that fast.
Yeah, I'm actually watching a video right now about one, and they're flying no more than 20 or 30 feet above the water, and they're doing probably 400 or 500 miles an hour.
And perfectly level. They're not waving at all. It's perfectly level.
Yeah, this is one of those well-dubbed proofs that, it's incoherent second grader on a 10-hour flight. It doesn't even have to be 10 hours. It only has to be an hour or 2-hour flight. You'd notice it. That's the point. All right. Anything else? Let's roll.
Super chat?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I got a super chat from Chow Cat, and he says, shout out to Jesus Christ, and Paula and Pillbox and all our Christian brothers and sisters.
Amen, Chow. Thank you very much. Let's roll.
Critics of Guglielmo Marconi said that it was impossible for Marconi to send a transatlantic transmission due to the curvature of the Earth. Here's an article pointing out that fact. Proving them wrong, Marconi received a radio transmission across the Atlantic Ocean at a distance of 2,135 miles. Under the globe model, there would be a curvature drop of 527 miles over that distance. The Knickebein targeting system was a VHF, that's very high-frequency radio targeting system used by German bombers in World War II. Knickebein was an accurate line-of-sight targeting system and was able to pinpoint ground targets up to 443 miles away in England. The leading government science advisor for Churchill, Frederick Lindemann, refused to believe that there was such a beam due to the curvature of the Earth, as VHF beams don't even allegedly wrap around the curvature. In total contradiction to the globe, Lindemann was wrong, and lives were lost because of his mistaken belief in the curvature. The Knickebein system did exist, and the VHF line-of-sight targeting system would have been impossible on a globe. In order to make sense of Knickebein, Wikipedia claims that the VHF system remained within line of sight of the bombers. The claim is mathematically wrong. With a distance of 443 miles from Stolberg Hill, Germany, to Derby, England, 117,504 feet should have been hidden, and the German bombers only flew at 19,200 feet.
Kaboom. Questions, comments?
I really like Knickebein because...
Ben, did I hear that right? So lives were lost because somebody actually did account for curvature that wasn't there?
Frederick Lindemann, if you actually read in that article I linked to there, Frederick Lindemann, he was the chief science advisor to Churchill. He said that they were debating whether this radio targeting system existed, and Lindemann, he said, no, it could not exist because of the curvature of the Earth. And the reason why he said that is because even allegedly VHF radio waves do not bend. They do not have the supposed, gosh, I forget the term. They're radio. They claim that low frequency radio waves bend with the curvature of the Earth, but very high frequency radio waves do not, according to the Globe supporters' belief. And he said it could not exist, and so for that debate occurred for a while, and if you watch the video, it took him a while then to figure out that this system did exist. And the only way they can make sense of it is to say that these targeting systems were within line of sight of the bombers, but we now know that that's mathematically incorrect. And so I really like the Knickebein proof because they have no argument against this. There's none. They can't say that it bends with curvature or refracts off the ionosphere or anything like that because it absolutely ruins the system.
I think QE summed it up. Kaboom. That's the end of that, really. No comment needed.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That was a quick kaboom. It was all over. All right, we ready to continue? Right, let's roll.
At the equator, the ground is allegedly rotating at 1,037 miles per hour. Yet, Felix Baumgartner took a balloon up to 128,000 feet above the surface, and it took him 2.5 hours to get that high. So, if the ground is rotating at 1,037 miles per hour at the equator, then Felix Baumgartner should have landed in the Pacific Ocean. As you are aware, Felix didn't land in the Pacific Ocean. He actually landed 44 miles east of his launch site. That's against the supposed rotation and the wrong direction. Don't you think the rotation of the Earth should have affected Felix's jump in some manner? There is little air up at 128,000 feet, but somehow Felix's balloon magically sped up to keep up with the ground below it. Does that make any sense to you? Even if there is some purported movement of the air at the surface due to the ground's alleged rotation, that air cannot communicate that same motion to the air at higher altitudes, and especially cannot cause that air to speed up. The spinning globe is utter nonsense. There is no evidence that the atmosphere is attached like Velcro to a spinning ball, and the fact that we don't have a 1,000 mile per hour westerly wind proves the faith-based religion of heliocentrism false.
Kaboom!
Yeah, it's the first law of thermodynamics violation. The get around for there being no deviation, i.e. Coriolis effect, that's alleged to be demonstrated in pendulums and gyroscopes and various other apparatus. That two reference frame system would necessitate there being a deviation. And they say, well, no, there isn't any deviation, the claimed proof that we're bloody spinning, because the atmosphere travels with the spinning Earth. Well, if that's the case, then according to the rhetoric of Felix Baumgartner, he's gone up and increased his velocity as the overall trajectory that he takes on the circumference that he's got as he ascends would be increasing. Therefore, he'd actually have to increase his velocity. And according to this, overcome and go beyond to land further away from Earth's alleged rotation. So, like I say, it's a first law of thermodynamics violation to assert that he's retaining the angular momentum after taking off, because he'd have to increase speed to keep up with it as he goes higher.
Yeah, that's the least of the problems. Gases don't have any intermolecular bonds, right? That's the most important thing here. The gases are not attached to themselves and are definitely not attached. Thank you. Definitely not attached to themselves, and they're definitely not attached to the Earth. It makes no damn sense, right? Especially wind directions, different wind directions. How can somebody just pulled this one up on me yesterday? I couldn't believe it. Yes, the clouds rotate with the Earth, right? How can the clouds rotate with the Earth? Which direction are they going? From west to east, right? You know that clouds go east to west also, right? They just whistled right past that. You know, how many times have you looked up in the sky and seen different levels of clouds all moving different directions? How can they be doing that and moving from west to east at the same time? My word. Thanks.
Yeah, the whole
it's
Coriolis
approximately
argument's-
lockstep.
It's riddled. It's absolutely riddled. The entire Coriolis argument's one of the worst clusterfucks of the entire heliocentric argument.
Well, I think that the gas pressure situation is probably even worse when you really look at the mechanical aspects of it. But the entire heliocentric ball system is so riddled with holes that the entire strategy priorities of the baller side is more focused on just trying to keep people confused rather than actually winning some mechanical argument.
Yep.
Yeah, but it goes back to that cogdis though, right? So remember the guy earlier with his kids watching the rocket, and he's saying to the kid, the rocket is going straight up, but
the Earth is spinning, so therefore that's why it looks like it's going down, right? This same person will look at that plume of smoke coming out of the volcano that's going straight up, that's not deviating in any way, and fix it in their heads that makes sense because the atmosphere is moving along with the Earth.
And yet they're not feeling it one little bit. They can observe it.
Right. Forget not feeling it. They're just seeing two different things, but they're trying to explain it in the same way. Right?
But going to that thing that you were saying before, I mean, it was the same thing that I was going to suggest, which was the trying to take away the ability of the average human to use their own senses. So in that particular case, your eye was saying that the rocket is going down, and yet in the same case with the Coriolis effect, we don't feel that we're spinning. We don't feel movement, but we're told we're moving at 1,000 miles an hour. We're told that rockets are going off into space. Don't believe your eyes. Don't believe your senses. Don't believe anything, because just believe us. We're right. You're wrong. And that's what they try to do.
Yeah, but they're appealing to something we don't even actually see. We don't even see this deviation, this apparent deviation that they claim, right? This is why now they argue for why things don't rotate, apart from the Earth, right? This is why the whole helicopter thing. Oh, why does the helicopter not deviate away? Oh, because it's in lockstep with the Earth. Well, then you have no Coriolis then, do you?
Come on, Chocolate. It makes sense that tornadoes would form because of the turbulence of the spinning of the Earth and the atmosphere, while at the same time, the atmosphere moves lockstep with the Earth. That makes sense, right?
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, the Coriolis isn't an effect anyway. It's just an observation of something happening.
Yeah, it's a not actual deviation. But the point is, I went to summarise this right at the beginning, is like the whole point of this with Coriolis is a really weak argument, because the only way they win is to start with the assumption Earth is spinning and then confuse the audience or the debater by jumping between having two reference frames, giving you the Coriolis deviation they claim prove Earth spins, and not having deviation because we have lockstep first law of thermodynamics violations and lockstep atmosphere moving with the Earth. Well, in the process of dancing between those two things, both parties are still under the assumption that Earth is spinning as a non-inertial spinning reference frame in all examples. And that's the whole point. It's a weak argument because the Coriolis deviation, the not actual deviation, things seeming to drift because they're staying stationary in the case of a drone that's left the ground, and you're moving away from it on a spinning platform claimed to be spinning Earth. Now, the fact that we don't see that at all in anything means that you've got to double speak your way around it by assuming Earth is spinning and then saying, oh no, with the assumption that Earth is spinning, Earth and atmosphere spin together. That's why you don't see the deviation I'm going to be using later when I talk about bullets deviating, because the Coriolis proof of Earth spins. As long as you can keep it in that circular, confusing state for the audience and the person you're arguing with, it's lost on the person and the audience that you've all assumed that Earth's spinning in all examples.
Right. It's like
That's
a parlor
why they
trick.
don't like us, because we have torn that apart. Sorry. Rest in peace, Coriolis for 2019.
But they keep on trying, though. They keep on coming back and restarting up the parlor trick. They keep on trying.
Yeah, we catch them, though. We catch them real quick. 'Cause Chocolate's the most on the ball of any of us. He's like, no, got to prove we're spinning first. Let's not just assume it and then talk about this deviation that does or doesn't happen. No.
All right, we're going to roll.
In addition
Super
to proving
chat.
the Earth was stationary, Felix Baumgartner proved that the horizon does indeed rise with the observer. An impossibility under the globe which should have a fixed, decreasing, tangible horizon. Here's the horizon line when Felix entered the capsule. Here's the horizon line at 128,000 feet. I did not alter the video. The horizon line didn't drop one iota, unequivocally disproving the globe.
I'll make a quick stop right here. I heard you. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's a super chat. Eddie, you here?
Yeah, that's a guy named Pat Riot, and he says super curved, and then an emoji. Are you listening? Clock 20 miles.
No, Super. He's
That's
not
it.
listening. No. Ben, outstanding here, brother. I like this short, quick point. It's kaboom.
I saw that Red's rhetoric was claiming that the capsule was swinging wildly, and that's why this happened. But it's absolutely hilarious because you can watch the whole thing. It's just very, very stationary. So it's another proof that these are scumbag liars.
It is, and I've been actually working on this actual observation today, and there should be a 6% drop, a 6-degree drop, sorry, not percent, 6-degree drop on the horizon if you lived on a globe. There ain't no drop. It's as flat as you can see.
Also, back to not actual location. You know, we're just to clarify for everybody who said it. I'm going to say it as a disclaimer for everyone who's used this argument in this section. So we're talking about when it's presupposed that the horizon is the leading edge of a sphere. It's back to take us to your edge, fundies. Well, if they're going to claim that the edge of the sphere is this horizon line in the globe, the fisheye footage and the horizon as you see it when this door opens, then your reified sphere edge isn't where it's supposed to be, notwithstanding the fact that it's a non-actual location. Should we move on?
Yes, let's roll.
Professionals who should account for the curvature never actually do. Snipers, surveyors, pilots, civil engineers, military guys, none of them account for the curvature. Mark Sargent has a great series on his channel where he interviews airline pilots, military professionals, radar operators, gunners, missile operators, engineers, commercial surveyors, and many more, all stating that there is no accounting for the curvature or the Earth's rotation in any manner.
Comments, questions?
I guess for this one was a big thing for me. When I started investigating the flat Earth, I immediately thought, well, what do the professionals say? What do they do? And you start talking with them, you start interacting with them, and then with the series with Mark Sargent, all these military professionals coming out and saying there's absolutely no accounting for curvature or rotation in any manner. I mean, come on, those are the people that should be accounting for it, and they don't.
Yeah, you got one right here. And they don't. Period. End of story. And if they do, please let me know. I need contact information so we can bring them on the show and they can demonstrate it for us. And like I said, if they can demonstrate it, especially the Coriolis effect with firing, I will eat my shoe. Okay? Thanks.
You can't have a Coriolis effect detector on any equipment. You can't detect not actual deviation. If there was a machine that was supposedly doing this, it would be accounting for Earth curvature. There's no such thing as a Coriolis detector. It's a complete nonsense statement.
And can we just confirm which shoe you'll be eating?
Nah, that's too many details.
My favorite part with them building a machine that can detect things, right? So they claim that they have gyroscopes or whatever that can detect some type of rotation, but yet the plane that the gyroscopes are supposed to be in don't detect it and don't have to account for it. So how does that work?
It doesn't. It's just another contradiction.
Exactly.
Let's roll.
The solar eclipse is a major proof of the flat Earth for two big reasons. First, the sun and the moon are the same apparent size. The sun is supposed to have a diameter 400 times larger than the moon, and yet the sun and the moon just happen to be the right distances to create the illusion of being the same size? Just think of how impossible that is under the heliocentric model. It is rubbish. Second, the moon is supposed to have a diameter of 2,159 miles, and yet the shadow of the moon is only 70 miles across the Earth's ground during a solar eclipse. That's a very simple proof that the heliocentric model is false. The lunar eclipse is very often raised as the key proof of the globe, but it fails under closer scrutiny. The biggest issue is the well-documented selenelion. A selenelion is where a lunar eclipse occurs when both the sun and the moon are both above the horizon, which means there is no alleged Earth between the sun and the moon that could cause a shadow on the moon. That's geometrically impossible. Again, the globe model fails.
Do I need to say it again? Kaboom!
Kaboom!
That's exactly right. That's French.
Yeah, their only get around is the slightly looming non-standard refraction high in the holographic projection of the sun from behind the reified edge of the Earth curve and the moon at the same time. So it's all refraction-based, R-based refraction, I might add, terrestrial refraction. Or in this case, no, it'd be stellar refraction, wouldn't it? So we're talking about things that don't have an actual size. It's a housekeeping question. Any evidence of the distance to the sun is part of that question, because there is no distance to the sun. You have to make an assumption about how big it is, and you don't have an actual size for the sun. You've got an angular size, a not actual size, something they're all too familiar with when dealing with things in the sky, and suddenly they all get a bit hazy when you're dealing with stuff on the ground that also has an angular size. Suddenly it's feet and inches. But in this instance, we've got not actual sizes of the sun. But in terms of when people start talking about how the sun proves things because of how it doesn't change its actual size as it goes behind the horizon, or how do you phrase it, QE? Why does the not actual size of the sun not change its not actual size as it moves from its not actual position?
Exactly. Thank you. Any more on this one? We got 2 more sections.
Let's do it.
Let's roll.
According to the heliocentric model, this Earth and its pressurized atmosphere are surrounded by a nearly endless vacuum that's more powerful than any vacuum that can be created here on Earth, and yet this vacuum is so weak that it can't remove our atmosphere. This is a fact. There's simply no possible way that an atmosphere can exist adjacent to a vacuum, and no one can prove otherwise. Nature abhors a vacuum, and the last time I checked, we're all still alive, and so you can dismiss the nonsense of space. I have...
Yep, that's the killer. Right there, you're all over it, Ben.
I love Dr. John Dee's experiment where he took the vacuum, turned it upside down, and still, there's no way that a vacuum could exist next to an atmosphere. It's just gravity doesn't solve the problem, and that's just an unbelievable obstacle that the globe. And what bothers me more than anything is it took me so long to figure this out. I should have caught this. I just feel for myself as a man that I should have caught this many years ago, and that they were able to get this one past me just makes me upset.
QE says that. QE says that exact same thing. I remember me bringing it up once, half joking, going, you say you feel guilty, and literally QE choked up on his own words. He's like, yeah, I feel like almost embarrassed that this got past me.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah.
Yeah, but
I don't feel stupid in the slightest. They swindled us. They lied to us. They programmed us. They played us enough bloody footage of Superman flying in the sky vacuum, Star Wars, Red Dwarf, Star Trek. I don't feel in the slightest bit like I'm stupid for having been swindled. They told us it was a vacuum. At that time, why would you think they would lie to you?
Nathan,
I feel like if I had never been told that, then that would be one thing, right? But I thought about these things. That's what irks me, because I thought about how the hell are people sticking to a ball? Like, even as a kid, I was thinking about, like, how do these things work? I don't get the whole people are sticking to a ball. How do we have air? I don't vacuum. What? These things bothered me. So just going along with it does kind of bother me that I did.
Right.
But I think Nathan's completely right. I mean, back when we were growing up in the 1970s and 1980s, that was what we went through. I mean, everything was revolving around space. You couldn't watch a TV program without it having a reference to the globe or space. Everything for kids was all about space. Button Moon, Star Trek, Star Wars, Lost in Space, you name it. They had everything. He-Man. Everything was out of this world. Everything was to take you away from where you currently are and put in your mind somewhere else. And that's what they did. That's how they were able to convince a generation, so to speak. But saying that, it's our age group that's actually waking up from this now. If you think about it, it's generally the younger kids that are much more difficult to convince and to try and get through their brainwashing. But because we're a little bit older and we went through that, we can see how the amount of propaganda we went through was able to condition us like that. We can look back on that now and understand that this was part of the programming.
I think the difference between you and I, Ranty, is I've got a justified reason. I understand it now. That's why I brought it up. But Ben and QE are more academic than us. Certainly more, degreed up and such. Therefore, to them, I hope I'm not speaking out of turn here, guys. It's just like, no, I should have been able to have recognised this. Whereas to your average layman, Joe, like you and I, Ranty, the grunts, fair enough, the programming's a good enough excuse. But I assume saying, well, no, it's not a good enough excuse for us to say that. But I don't, on the other hand, you shouldn't feel any remorse, right? You've all been subject to the same programming we were.
I had NASA wallpaper. I had NASA wallpaper all over my walls with the lunar lander and the rocket going up and landing on the moon. It was just everywhere.
Sure, but I know Jibby Jedi's come up on the show a couple of times, but Jibby said similar stuff. When you're working in that field, you're studying astronomy. You kind of think, well, no, I should have seen it. Maybe that's. I don't know. They're both gone really quiet. We're jabbering along, and I've forced them into silence. I'm really sorry.
It's all good. I really love the discussion. So, no, I agree with what you're saying, Nathan.
It's the obtuseness of the contradiction on that one, as somebody that would proclaim to understand gas law, etc., etc. That it's so glaring that you miss it, and that's the kick in the nuts. That I would sympathise with when QE describes that one, because it is so glaring a contradiction and you do just miss it. But again,
that's a great point, Adam. It's that simplicity with it. It's so, maybe that's why it passes so easily, is because it was so simple. We're trying to search out complex things, and it's those simple things. And I was actually talking with John earlier about how understanding the globe horizon, what they meant by the horizon. It took me a while to figure out that test of actually going out there and testing where the globe horizon is, because I was still indoctrinated with their ideas that it just I couldn't understand how I could go out there and test the horizon, even though it should have been a simple idea. But it was so simple, I guess it took me a while to grasp what to do.
Can I just say, Ben, that because I was already into conspiracies before I got into Flat Earth, the notion of looking for a Flat Earth video, when I knew that there was people out there talking about it, to me, even though I was conspiracy minded, was ridiculous. I didn't want to look into that. I thought they were absolutely retarded, genuinely. In fact, the only reason I watched a video was because I had nothing else to watch. I'd watched every other conspiracy video, and it was out of pure boredom that I watched one. And this is how we got here. This is how we got here, because we were conditioned so, they did such a good job in telling us that we live on a ball and putting this sphere in our head that we live on a ball. We never thought about it. We never gave it a second thought.
I was terrified of it. I was terrified it most of the time, one way or the other. I guess I felt the implications of it, and the extreme polarized experience I had with it, even as a young kid, being extremely discouraged, giving some chance to maybe being interested in a flat Earth model as a young kid. And so I was always just afraid of it until it got broken open in the internet, and just the green light was given that it's okay to now talk about it on YouTube. And yeah, that eventually.
I also wanted to add that investigating it for me was against what I consider myself my spirituality, my religion. I had built my own spirituality with the globe and things like that. So it actually went against what my own thoughts about, how the Bible and everything worked. And so I had to throw away my notions, my spiritual notions. So a lot of times they'll claim, it's because you're a Bible thumper or something like that. It's not the case at all. I had to throw away my ideas about spirituality to investigate the flat Earth honestly.
Well, I somewhat agree, because the idea that at some point we could get beamed up into space, and go off into light speed and end up in a different galaxy in just a couple of days' time, that to me was a fantastical idea, and I believed it wholeheartedly that my kids or my great kids down the line could be one of these astronauts going off and exploring, because that's what we were told. So to have that taken away, was kind of like a bit You know, I don't want that. I want to
It's
believe
heartbreaking.
It is. It is absolutely. Yeah, that's
that's
the
your faith.
downside on the other side.
I was going to say that what Ben described in terms of having to let go of certain, I can't remember the word you used, faith or your belief structure, you're no different to the people who oppose us. In other words, they've all got their belief structure too. It might not be a Christian one as it was in your case, but they're still having to relinquish things that they simply don't want to let go of. So most people are in exactly the same boat.
Yes.
The gas pressure without a container. Look, listen, there's no sugarcoating this. Let me allow me to make you feel as guilty as I do. You don't have to be an expert in the second law of thermodynamics to figure this one out. All you have to do is be a kid with a bike, a flat tire. Okay? So you're all in this bed together. Like I said, it's a personal thing. I feel more indicted, but that's just personal to me. I mean, I'm not going to... The only reason I shared it is people asked me, but I take that alone. Thanks.
No, well, to bolster that and agree with you, nobody watching this will deny that when they hear that argument, unless they brace against it and have the cognitive dissonance, they don't slap their own head and go, bloody hell, how did I think of that? Because you do. You go, yeah, bloody hell, the gas would fill the space if the sky was a vacuum. Isn't it obvious? So, yeah, you're kind of right. It is all on us, too. It should have been blatant.
Welcome aboard!
I don't know if you've experienced this with a lot of the trolls coming on your channels, but lately they've been coming on my channel saying, "Oh, it can happen on a globe because all you have to do is look up at the sky and you can see that there's a pressurized atmosphere." And you're like, it's the circular argument of presupposing the globe exists in order to create the idea that the globe exists. Is just absolutely hilarious to me.
Yes, got it right, Ben. Yep. All right, this is the last section. Let's roll.
Presented a substantial amount of evidence proving that we've been lied to big time. But it takes a strong, independent mind to recognize and then set aside one's indoctrination. Unlike the globe propagandists, we flat earth.
I thought I was going to get around this, but it didn't let me.
It's only a family vacation if all the family is together.
We flat earthers don't want you to believe or trust us. We don't believe in the flat earth. Please understand that. We tested whether the globe exists and found, based on the extensive amount of evidence that we've gathered, that there is no curvature, that there is no outer space, and heliocentrism is false. But we want you to figure that out for yourself. On the other hand, NASA and its spaniels, liars, parrots, and actors will never tell you to go out and measure the curvature yourself. They are scam artists and deceivers. They want you to be gullible and ignorant as though it's a virtue. Please reject the illusions, lies, and hypnosis. Break your mental shackles. Come out of the allegorical cave and your stupid, fundamental, heliocentric religion and conduct these experiments and test the globe yourself. Come up with new experiments and ideas. Share what you have. It's fun and it's exciting. Flat Earth is breaking the chains that bind humanity. We absolutely promote intellectual freedom and investigation. And we hope that a new breed of independently minded professionals, PhDs, and students will, in all humility, work together towards a true and objective grassroots scientific movement. I'm not embarrassed I'm a flat earther. I'm embarrassed it took me 40 years to see the truth that we live on a flat and stationary plane. Flat Earth comes with a big serving of humility. Based on experimentation, testing, and genuine reflection, we all came to realize that the Earth is flat and stationary, that outer space is fake, and that NASA lied. And that is huge, and that's enough for me to call you family. I very much love you all like my family. May our love, friendship, and addiction for truth never cease on this beautiful, flat, and stationary plane. God bless you.
Ah, I love you too, Ben.
Thank you, Nathan.
I love him more.
I just want to elaborate on something I said before when I said that I felt like I'd lost something when we lost the idea that we could go to space and travel and all that kind of stuff. Well, who knows how far this plane extends? You know, we might have lost the idea of going up into the realms of space, but we've got outer regions that we could perhaps go to, because who knows exactly how far this realm that we live on actually extends. We just need to be able to go beyond 60 degrees south latitude to go and find out for ourselves.
Perfect. Any chance you can bring up my picture from Simpsons?
One sec. Did you put it in Skype?
Yeah, it's in the BallBusters Skype. So just to throw back to the conversation we were having about half an hour ago when we were talking about balloon satellites, and if you want to know whether or not they're laughing at you, yeah, they are, because they want to test how gullible you are, because it amuses them. The people who perpetrate these lies are psychopaths, and it's called duper's delight. Smirking while they overtly lie to you or show you the reality of what your world is. And the Simpsons do it all the time. It's totally toxic. But there it is. There's the Fox balloon satellite.
Oh, that's great. I got to find that episode.
It's one where I believe Bart gets a telescope.
Okay.
And starts looking out, and just points it out, and Lisa says, "This is how you use it. There you go. There's the Fox. There's the Fox satellite in the telescope."
I like how it's all falling apart as well.
They couldn't be more. They couldn't be more overt about it.
Is it falling apart because they're actually saying that the narrative of that is falling apart?
It's a surface level joke. So the surface level joke is that the Fox satellite's crappy. That's the surface joke. Like most things, it's got more than one layer.
Right, it's an inside criticism point as to, hey, can you please update that damn antenna of yours? Because it's getting outdated.
Yeah, Simpsons are on Fox, so it's like a kind of half in joke against their own network by saying it's crappy. But that's, like I say, just the surface level gag. Anyway, before we sidetrack, just kudos to Ben. I said this before we went live, but that was a cracking video to dissect, because it's just chock-a-block start to
Oh, we lost you out there. Let's get him back. We got everyone again?
Yeah, should we go around the panel? I'm doing Paula's bit for now. Sorry, Paula.
Hey, we lost you. Hey, Nathan, hold on a second. Hold on. I lost you for about 2 minutes. Skype went down, so I got you all back. You need to start off with what you were saying to Ben again, Nathan.
I think Ben's got to head off. So what I was saying was, from start to finish, that was an exceptionally good video, and it's been a pleasure dissecting it. Also, a pleasure for me to actually be in the video. So thank you very much to Ben. I know he's going to disappear now, which is what he said just when your Skype went down. So,
Ben, you got to go before you go. Before you go, Ben.
Yeah.
I'd just like to say that this presentation, in my humble opinion, is top 3 that I've ever seen. That's how good it was. So thank you very much, sir.
And thank you to everybody that helped. In all honesty, I grabbed a lot from everywhere. From Dr. John D, from Ranty, from everywhere, from Nathan. That's what I love about the Flat Earth. It's a grassroots movement. There's no. I mean, we're all sharing what we can find. We're sharing what we've discovered, or tests or experiments, whatever you want to call it. We're all doing that, and we're sharing them as open to all. And I just love that aspect of it, that there is no top-down dictator telling us what to believe. Is that we're out there doing it ourselves. And thanks to everybody.
Kudos to you, sir. You're welcome back anytime.
Thank you, John. Have a good one, everybody. Thank you.
You too, sir.
See you later,
thank
Ben.
you,
man.
Thanks, Ben.
Keep doing what you're doing, brother.
And going on from this grassroots thing, it's like when we can afford to make mistakes as well. Like he says, there's nobody telling us what's right and what's wrong. We're all out here just exploring and finding our own legs in this movement. And Nathan, you remember a couple of years ago when you first started the debates, what it was like then, what our arguments were like then, so we're totally different. We're more slick now. We have the answers. And 2 years ago, we didn't. But that's through us learning, There's nobody telling us what to learn. We learn it ourselves through our own research and hard work.
Yeah, and Ben summarised that at the end of the point. It's like, well, kind of alluding to, yeah, we'd like you to see it too, but it's no skin off our teeth if you don't. It's down to you to see your own world, and not down to me to prove it to you. It's like, that's kind of why I've maybe relaxed a little bit more on the debate recently, because it's kind of inconsequential to me. You don't have to believe me. I don't care. Who cares? The Earth's obviously an observable flat. Take it or leave it.
Jeranism did an interesting video. I don't know if you've seen that, where he calls. Go on.
No, I got contacted QE about it. I was like, did you see the Jeranism video? Because he happened to be going through theoretical scientific physics and talking about the pseudoscience that it actually is. Did you happen to watch that, QE?
Yeah, I did. I placed a comment on the video too. They crack me up. Lawrence Krauss, what a bonehead. He gets on this 4-minute yarn of just absolute baloney, and then at the end he says quantum mechanics. Like, that covers him. I mean, that boy wouldn't know what quantum mechanics was if it landed on his face, spun around, bit his nose off, and whistled Dixie. But he, like I said before in all the other presentations, they just say it in the same context as their fairy tales, and they think it kind of offers it some veracity in some way. I was aggravated by it. He's not the only one that did it. There was a couple other people that did it. Quantum gravity? What's that? Unbelievable.
I did that to you on the call, didn't I? I was like, I couldn't remember who it was, but yeah, Lawrence Krauss. Yeah, I know some people say that making something out of nothing is a violation of a natural law. But if you throw gravity into the mix, you can make something out of nothing with nothing coming out of something, blah, 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 blah. Like you say, about a 4-minute diatribe. And then right at the end, he just says, and quantum mechanics. And that's kind of his catch-all statement to just make his complete baloney horse crap that he spouted for the last few minutes make some sort of semblance of sense. It didn't. He's just talking utter nonsense. He even prefaces it like Rumpus or someone by stating at the beginning that basically what he's about to tell you violates natural law. He literally disclaimed it at the beginning. You're like, oh my God.
Something from nothing. Yeah, sure. Sure, Larry. What a clown. All right, guys, we've been going for a while now. Let's go ahead and get everyone's final thoughts. Anthony, are you still with us?
Can I have another comment?
Yeah, you can in your final thoughts. Anthony, are you still with us?
Yeah, I was listening. Just be aware that when they talk about atmospheric and air pressure, I'm being targeted heavily at the minute because they need to have mass for atmospheric pressure, because they say that atmospheric pressure is pushing down, and that's why the atmosphere is not bursting off into space. They need to have mass for that to be true, but they don't have mass because there is no intermolecular bonds. It was said earlier on really quickly, and I just want to dwell on that point a little bit, because they need to have the intermolecular bonds or some element of containment for them to have atmospheric pressure. But on the open model, they don't have any form of containment, so they need to have intermolecular bonds, and they don't have it. So don't let them go with the atmospheric pressure, because challenge them on mass. They don't have mass because they don't have any intermolecular bonds, and it's an open system. So that kills their argument for why the atmosphere doesn't burst into space. And just quickly, my last point. Check out Red's Rhetoric's challenge vote thing that he's doing. For those of you that are on our side, please go and vote for me, because I want to try and win this. I want to try and bandy up some support so that I can win the annual Dumb Fuck of the Year award thing.
Really?
So if you haven't checked, yeah.
He's still around?
Make sure you go. Yeah, he's still around. He's still doing it. So it's on his channel somewhere. Ranty might be able to tell you where to get it from and how to do it. But as I understand it, it's on his channel, and all you do is you click in the link for my name, and then up or down vote the video. And if you haven't already done it, please go and do it, because I just want to encourage people over there to vote for it, because I want to storm it this year for both sides. So make sure if you're on our side, you go and vote for me, and if you're not, it doesn't matter.
All right,
I've linked you up. Tony.
You want to win it?
Yeah, I want it.
Oh man!
All right, Paul.
Arwin, did you
go ahead? Go ahead, Nathan.
I was going to say Arwin was pretty keen.
Go ahead, Arwen. Final thoughts and your idea that you had. Go ahead. All right. So, Paula, final thoughts?
I agree with everybody's opinion that this is.
Wait.
If you had to pick one, huh?
Hold on,
Sorry,
Arwen.
Arwen,
we'll get right to you after Paula. Go ahead, Paula.
All right.
I was just going to say I agree with everybody else's opinion that if you had to pick one video to send people to, this would be good. That at least one of the top ones, because it just hits the points one after another and does it in a way that is pretty hard to argue with. I mean, there's observations, not calculations, and not paintings. It's just ordinary people going out with ordinary cameras and making observations and going, this is impossible. And I agree that, if you had to pick one video, this would probably be the one.
I totally agree. Thanks. Arwen?
Yes. Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. So, but I was thinking about this whole quantum gravity concept, and it got me kind of inspired. So, if quantum gravity, if it is about like quantum, what is it? Quantum computing, for example, like there's a undecided choice, and then that maybe is it quantum gravity about whether it is a force or not a force?
No.
And the consciousness has something to do whether it actually becomes a force or not a force. I don't know. It's an interesting.
No, they conjured gravitons. They don't exist. Let's just move on from this quantum gravity. It's a conjured.
I think my version is better.
I'll bet you it is. Final thoughts on the presentation from Ben?
Yeah, it was excellent. Really well put, well refined, and easy to take in. So yeah, it's great. Good work.
Thank you, Arwen. Dr. John D, are you still? I know you had to go. He's still here.
Yep,
okay.
Yep. All good. Still here. Yeah. Well, what can I say? Fantastic presentation. Switch the light off, close the door. Let's go home.
Yeah, I feel the same way, Dr. John. Chocolate, final thoughts?
Yeah, same here, man. It was an awesome video. Ben is great at what he does. And yeah, it was a great presentation, good show. And yep.
Adam, final thoughts?
I think you're getting a unanimous panel. Liked it. Even though I wasn't in it, Nathan, still liked it. But yeah, no, really good. And I think as Paula, a really good presentational video for you to use with people. It's clear, it's concise, and it really does highlight some of the really good, strong points, as well as then taking apart some of the ballers' best bits. So, yeah. Cheers, Ben.
Thank you, sir. Ranty, final thoughts?
Final thoughts. Excellent presentation, excellent video that you put out. Ben's been doing this for the past few years. He's got some great videos. He's been hammering away, chipping away. Everyone go and subscribe to Taboo Conspiracy if you haven't already. What would I say? The best parts of the video are horizon tests. Horizon tests absolutely disprove the globe model. They disprove where the supposed curvature should start, i.e. the horizon. In doing so, it disproves gravity, disproves their model, and proves beyond the shadow of a doubt that we don't live on the supposed Earth-shaped sphere that we are told.
Thank you, sir. Betty, final thoughts?
Yeah, great show. I think it's a great video. I will watch it again because it's lots of information to take in, and definitely great how we brought it. And if that was one of the presentations also on the Flat Earth conference, then it's a good one. So kudos to Taboo Conspiracy. And I've got a last super chat to shout out. And it's from Shad Bassoon, and he says, "Great show, guys." So that sums it up for that guy.
Appreciate that, Betty, and thank you. Nathan Oakley, final thoughts, sir.
Yeah, take me to your Sphere Edge fundies. Also, take me to your Edge. Once the show ends, I'll start a premiere over on my second channel. So I've been spamming the link to that show. So if you want to hop over to there once the show rounds out, I'll see you in that chat. And thanks to Ben, because that was an epic video.
Yep, no worries, sir. We'll be done in a minute. I want to thank the entire panel. We already thanked Ben. Like I said, unbelievable presentation. Remember, take no prisoners. No quarter will be asked. None shall be given. And remember, I'll be back a couple weeks from now. Thanks for attending BallBusters, guys. Appreciate it. Have a good one. Happy holidays. And we'll catch you on the flip side.